What's up, guys? It's Robbie MC, and welcome back to another video. I can't say welcome back to another Smash Bootcamp video because this is going to be a very different kind of video than I normally do. Um, Today, we're going to be reacting to the trans conservatives versus trans liberals debate that happened on Jubilee today's Saturday, so last Sunday. This debate was highly anticipated with the post and stuff that was coming out before the episode aired. So this, as you can see, is going to be a pretty long stream, so we're going to get into it. And I guess I'll give my commentary over the video as we talk. Let me just see. All right. I think this should be enough. Okay. Let's get into it. If it's too loud, I'll lower it.
Men's restroom looking like this. So you can look at me looking like this.
It's just interesting that I thought this was a trans debate. That's what I thought.
Non-binary people.
Non-binary people
will
fall
for
under the trans umbrella.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe you could educate yourself a little bit on that.
I think I could educate you.
Then you would figure out,
I think I could educate
you know, what
right?
reality is.
Oh, whoa.
Oh shit. Here we go.
It is a safety concern for trans women to share a female restroom.
Absolutely. I would walk forward on this. I don't know. I think maybe before, like years ago, it wasn't a huge issue. But because we've come to a self-ID type of timeline that we're in right now, where, you know, someone says, I identify as a woman, and we have to respect it or else we're transphobic. Yes, it's absolutely a safety concern for okay. The question is saying a safety concern for trans women to share a female restroom. I think it's more a safety concern for the women. I don't like trans women, real trans women who have gender dysphoria and going through a transition. I don't think they're a danger to women because they just want to be able to transition from male to female and just have that be their life. But there's going to be some men out there that take advantage of, you know, the self-ID thing and put on a wig and a dress and be like, I'm a woman and I'm going to go use the restroom. In a lot of liberal states in the country, that's like allowed legally. So let's see what they say.
Can the agreeers please step forward?
Before we begin this episode, we know there's been a lot of anticipation for this topic.
Okay, yeah.
It depends. Yes.
So I think that to start it off though too is it's not necessarily saying that trans women. It all comes down to self-ID. When we moved into a
Right,
self-ID
exactly what I said.
process, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of men just simply self-IDing into being trans women to utilize the female restroom and to harm women. I think
Or
that's the
just
biggest
be
thing.
there. They're getting arousal from just being there.
True.
You know, there's a photo or it was a video that went viral, I think like just 2 weeks ago, with some like whole man with a boner in the women's restroom. And there's just some poor woman filming it. Like, am I just supposed to like accept that this is here? So I think there's levels to it. I think that trans women who are actually trans, you know, we're talking gender dysphoria, transitions, making the effort, you know, probably once you reach a certain point in your transition where you can actually assimilate within that space and not cause a disruptance, that would probably be the ideal time to start doing that, right? Whereas, you know, a cross-dresser who is emboldened to, in this current climate, say that they're trans because now anything is trans if you say so,
Yeah.
that person should probably stay absolutely out of women's restrooms
Yeah.
because you're there to get your rocks off and the women are there to take a poop and a pee. So it's not the same. And you know, I really empathize with women who, you know, have an issue with it. And I can probably hear some women commenting, well, how do I know the difference between a fetishist and a real trans person? It's hard. It's hard. However, that's the only nuance that I know to give to it, which is there's different reasons people are trans, and some people really are trans because they're horny, and some people are trans because
True.
they really felt that way from, you know, a young age or whatever.
I agree with that. The only problem I see with that is when you say, how can I tell the difference between a fetishist and a real trans woman? The problem is that it comes down kind of to how good you pass, because when you see someone who passes as a trans woman, in your head it's like, oh, they're making the effort to transition and they're doing this stuff. You could have another person who just, because of their puberty, how they, like they grew up tall and, they got big shoulders or whatever, they're just gonna look like a man in a wig and a dress, even though they might be really trans. You know what I mean? So I think, unfortunately, it does come down to whether you pass well or not. I know it shouldn't be that way, but um, I mean, it makes, in a perfect world, it would make sense for a real trans woman, if you know you're a real trans woman, to use a women's restroom, like, to be able to tell the difference. But unfortunately, you can't.
See, I agree to an extent. Like when you go to transition, and this is a fairly universal experience. You know, once you get to a certain point of passing, that's
See?
about the time that you would start going into the other bathroom, as opposed to not make the same sex uncomfortable. Once you reach that point in your transition, a lot of things change, but you know, you start to see things from another perspective. You start to see things from the perspective.
It makes sense using the other bathroom to make the same sex um not uncomfortable. You know what? I just experienced this the other day. So I'm a lifeguard at a gym, and I think it was like Thursday or something. We had a trans man and two women, cis women, come out of the women's restroom locker room to go swimming, and they swam and did their thing, but they went back into the women's restroom, all three of them, and the girl at the front desk told me that two women went up and said, "There's a man in the women's restroom, and we feel uncomfortable." And like, to everyone who's online saying, you know, you should use the bathroom that aligns with your biological sex, that's exactly what she did, or what he did, because they're a trans man now, but that's exactly what he did. He had a beard, his voice was deeper, but you could tell that they had breast, so like, they didn't have top surgery, but they were biologically female, and they used the women's restroom, and it caused an issue. So I think what Andrew said here about when you're farther along in your transition, using the other restroom to make the same sex more comfortable, I guess that's true too, because he made women uncomfortable, and he was actually a biological woman. So Jamie said it's really about passability, which sucks. Yeah, it's true, because what if someone for real is trans but doesn't pass? Exactly. Like, because everyone's saying you can tell the difference. The way to tell the difference is you just see a man in a wig and a dress. That's how you tell the difference, right? Because they don't look like a woman, whatever. But it's true. Someone just may not pass very well. It's unfortunate. Blair has that privilege of being able to pass very well. And what if a fetishist does? Exactly. Like, you never really know. I really wish there was a simple answer to it, but I don't know. Let's keep watching, because this is kind of a long debate.
Of a cis person.
Yeah.
And I actually offer some solutions to this, because I believe the free market can handle all of this stuff, because in government-run and government-funded buildings, there should always be a third space for us to use. And I do. When I go to the Capitol and stuff like that, I always use third spaces. But I think that private property owners can make the rules for their establishment and figure out how to enforce those rules.
I mean, I wouldn't say third spaces for trans
Exactly.
people.
Like, we're in a
just
state right now.
general.
We're in a state right now where you have to allow anybody to use whatever restroom they want.
If you're a decent human.
Okay, so the thing is, and I hope this doesn't rub anyone the wrong way, but a lot of far left trans people are on TikTok and social media saying that, if they transition into now they're a trans woman, how, they've always been a woman, right? Like, I was born a girl, and, I'm biologically female and stuff like that. Like, they put in their head that they have always been female after they transition, when it's not true. Like, you were born male, you felt this gender dysphoria, and you decided to change your body to align with how you feel. And the problem is those specific trans people even if there is a third space, will go to the women's restroom because they still feel that the trans bathroom is discriminatory because they're saying, oh, they don't view us as a woman, they view us as trans, so I'm still going to go use the women's restroom. So it may not even be a good solution. It might help with, you know, most trans people. They're like, oh, look, there's a trans bathroom. I'll go use the trans bathroom. But those people who have this crazy mindset will still go to use the women's restroom, unfortunately.
Human being, you do what causes the least disturbance. So, for example, I filmed a YouTube video a few years ago where I entered a men's restroom just because I was responding to comments who were like, well, maybe you should use a men's restroom if you really feel like the way you feel. And so I said, okay, let's do it. Let's put a camera. And I was kicked out within seconds of the entire establishment, and it was a whole ruckus. So that's what I mean by, if you're a decent person, you do what causes the least amount of problems for people around you. And if you're, you know, a moral person, you're going to be conflict avoidant in general when it's something like that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
what's the point of causing issues for anyone, especially if you're really just trying to pee?
I think just put
Get
your
it
head
done.
down, go in, get out.
Right.
True.
The disagreeers, please step forward.
I want to comment on Blair's point. The one thing I kept hearing through all of the nuance is passability.
I never
Because
said that.
ultimately, when
It's
we
true.
talk about passability, it determines how you get harassed in the bathroom. Because
True.
honestly, if you don't look so passable or whatnot, people are going to say, "Oh, that's a man with a dress on."
See?
And there's going to be
That's
this.
exactly what we said.
But the reality of it is, honestly, who cares who's trans and who's cis going in the bathroom? You should be minding your own business, being able to pee and do your business in peace for the most part. That conversation around this man with a boner on or whatever like that, I saw that picture and I thought to myself, that's really a right-wing talking point and conservative propaganda because that's their ideology.
How is it
when
It
it
was a
comes
thing
to
that
trans.
happened.
I'm
It's
speaking-
not proper. Oh,
That's their ideology when it comes to trans. It's because conservatives have a basic level understanding of what transness is in the first place. And with all due respect, I do not think any of you are basic, but they use you as the baseline to amplifying this propaganda.
it's not even propaganda. It's something that actually happened.
How
Let
is
me
it
ask you a question.
propaganda if it's a thing that really happened? It was caught on video. Like, it was an actual occurrence. It wasn't
Okay.
staged. It happened, and that's not the only. It's not an isolated
But
incident.
that's not.
See, Blossom had us in the beginning, right? She was saying like, you know, it does come down to passability, which is ultimately true. But then it turned into like, it just went downhill. Holy shit. Oh boy, I just heard there's been a lot of people coming for Blossom, and I've been seeing a lot of comments, even on, she was on a podcast, I think, the other day, and a lot of liberals were coming for her too. So I guess her performance in this debate was really bad because if the liberals were coming for her, it must have been not good. Yeah, it's not propaganda. It actually happened, honey, as somebody caught it on camera.
Enough for me to say because
I love Blair too. It was actually the reason why I was so excited to watch this video.
actors can do that. Who knows? They could have been an actor trying to make a point against trans people. But this has always been our.
An actor, honey? Okay. I don't think that necessarily proves her point. I think it kind of proved the conservatives' point that it could have been an actor, right? Clearly they were male and they went into the women's restroom to make them uncomfortable. If it was just an actor, she's saying, oh, it's just an actor, right? But it was still a man who got access to women's restroom and, you know, obviously made women uncomfortable. So, like the self-ID, nobody's looking. Nobody's questioning now. You know how dangerous it is to be like, you're not really trans? Like, the mental stability on a lot of these people are very low, so they will lash out at you. Like, the violence is crazy.
Battle. It's just like, from what I just heard you were saying with your talking points, because I did understand what you were saying. I just got the word passability out of there, and
Which I didn't
to
say
a-
that word at all.
No, I'm saying
He
that
said
word.
possibility.
I'm saying.
She didn't say it. He
I'm-
did. And the
I'll say
problem.
it.
Thanks for
the,
the follow.
I can't.
The
I
problem
couldn't
with
hear.
the-
I just couldn't hear back there.
the
You know what I was
liberals,
saying
the
was.
liberals always use the.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you said that word. What I was getting out of what you were saying, the one word that was coming to me was passability. This is Blossom saying it. And so passability politics is really a thing in our trans community, especially when we come to the debate of restrooms.
Well, you can say it's politics, but actually it's just real life, right? It's just about
Correct.
where
True.
you're able to assimilate to and where you're not. And I think one of the biggest problems in the trans community is the community by and large has seemed to reject assimilation and seems hell-bent on...
That's not true.
I think it's absolutely true, which is you see people talking about how you don't need to work on your transition at all to enter women's restrooms. And I think that that is so selfish.
That drives
so
me
it's
crazy.
so disregarding of women who may or may not feel
But
uncomfortable.
the trans woman experience is not monolithic. So who are we
I
to
never said it
police transness? Why are we policing other people's transness
I'm
and
just
how they
listening to
show
women.
up?
We have to
But why are
protect
we,
women.
Why are y'all
Yeah.
policing though? That's what I don't understand.
But you're using
I-
words
it's
that we're not
policing.
using. It's not policing. We're listening
is
to women,
policing.
and if you have 50%, we won't say 50%, but if you have a large chunk of the population of women saying that they are uncomfortable with a certain thing, a good person leans in and listens.
So why
they
are
don't
you
just
not
reject.
listening
Exactly.
to other trans women, Blair?
I
think
do
that's,
all day. I am
okay,
right
so,
now.
But you didn't, and I'm not trying to be combative or whatever like that.
A little
I'm just
bit,
trying
you
to
are.
Figure out, you know what I'm saying, what the middle ground would be between you and I, because you said one side and that's great, but what about the side of trans women? If we're not bringing both sides into this conversation,
what I would say
then
then.
it is unbalanced.
Here's what I would say then, because I do understand both sides. I didn't, I'm almost a decade into my transition, which means I was one time a year in, 6 months in, 2 months in. So I understand that. But I also knew at the very beginning of my transition that if I'm not at a place physically where I'm not making people feel uncomfortable, or I'm making people uncomfortable, then
Right.
that's on me. That's
Correct.
my responsibility to make sure that I'm going places a certain way to make sure that they're comfortable.
Because it's for
It
your
was my
safety
respons-
also, too, right?
Well,
Would you also
you
say
can-
that you're safe?
Blossom's looking at it through trans women only, like all the time. I can see how what she's talking about, how it could be a safety issue if they go into the men's restroom and, like, because sometimes the men be crazy in there. Like, even me just being gay, like, sometimes the men in there make me a little bit uncomfortable, but, like, I can see where she's coming from, but also it is ultimately the women that are gonna, like, if it's a man who's not really trans, it's just a fetishist, they're the ones in danger. So, like, at the end of the day, the trans women are entering cis women's spaces. And so they ultimately have the most say, which I agree with Blair with, her looking at it through the lens of women, because it is true. The women, like, if they say, we don't feel comfortable with you entering our space, then you got to respect that, because that is their space. They deserve it, right? Real life is full of men and all this stuff, and it's a crazy world, but the women's restroom is one of the only places where cis women can feel safe, and, like, among other women and stuff. You know what I mean? And then once you start letting trans women who are not really trans into that space, it can turn into something ugly. Let me see. This is my third time watching this debate. Everyone should. I agree. Very accurate portrayal of our current political climate and craziness going on with the extremists. Yes, I agree. This debate, like, so far, it shows how much we've pushed, be yourself, and, like, identify as whatever you want, because you really got these people out here identifying as candlesticks, right? And they expect you to use candle self and talk about candle in this pronoun. Like, I think when you put it in this perspective and have people from each side, it shows the level of craziness that we've gotten to.
Well,
Your
I know
safety
that
plays a part.
you seem to be looking at through the lens of always trans being the priority. I'm looking at through the lens of women being the priority here. There's
But
plenty of situations
Why? I just want to know
because
why
it's them who
around
would
that.
fall victim to not
See,
actual
exactly.
trans women, as I said, but people posing as trans women,
I have an
people who
answer.
are
But trans
actually
women are
trans.
also victims of that as well.
I'm sorry. I would love it if the two of you have said your piece, and I would love to.
Only person that will be calling Kendall is Miss Kendall Jenner. True.
Yeah,
else
I
needs
just
to
want to
talk.
make this
Nobody
point.
else is
I just
talking.
want to make this point as well. But trans women also experience violence and also need
No
that
doubt.
protection. And so that's
Mhm.
the
No
thing.
doubt.
Like, it should be an even playing field. I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is I would like to challenge you to expand to make sure you're being inclusive of both sides or whatever, because
I
we
am.
gotta
But
have
this
have
is-
to have these important conversations between cis women and
Yeah.
trans women.
I
And,
mean, I
and I'm
think-
just gonna say, and I'm not gonna just say cis women. I'm gonna say women, biological women. I want to make it inclusive of everyone.
I think the middle ground, though, is, and I feel like I'm not coming at this from an extreme place. I feel like an extreme place would be like no trans women in the bathroom ever. That's the extreme position. I'm saying work on your transition, take it as your responsibility, and be respectful. And that's the middle ground, right?
This is a self-preservation
I like
issue,
that.
right? So if somebody's in the bathroom and they have a boner, that looks bad on all of us. And when people, and when our community's not calling that out and not saying that this is
But
wrong,
I'm just,
No,
to your
I get
point,
it.
how many cases has that occurred?
it happens. It happens a lot. We see it.
Yeah.
It's happening all the time.
No, I
There
have
are-
to
there
actually
are-
see,
there are-
I have to
there are
actually see
Twitter
data.
I don't know. Blossom is talking like how she doesn't see it happening. Like there is a lot of posts and stuff that people post about this happening, and also sometimes the situation might happen so fast that a woman may not have time to pull out a camera and be like, there's this man in the restroom making me uncomfortable. Like sometimes it's in your head, it's like, holy shit, I gotta be careful. Like, but it can happen so fast. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. So, yeah, I don't know why Blossom's trying to defend that kind of behavior.
Counts.
I'm sorry, because I just want to make sure the back and
Yeah.
forth goes everywhere.
I mean, there's Twitter accounts with millions of followers that show this stuff
Mhm.
multiple times
Okay,
a day.
now I know what we're talking about.
And so we're
Oh, now
we're
she does,
showing
okay.
that these types of things do actually cause harm to trans people. So if you're looking at it at a trans
True.
lens and to say what are we doing, we need to combat that stuff and come together to combat
It
that
does
stuff.
not encompass the entire trans experience.
No,
and
you're
that's all
right.
I just want to say.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of different points from everybody here. Honestly, like I can understand like how some women may feel unsafe with men in the restroom. Men, when I say men, I mean men. I'm not talking about trans women. So being a non-binary person that sometimes has the choice to either go into a men's restroom looking like this,
But she shouldn't.
looking like this. You can look at me
No,
looking like this.
it's just interesting. I thought this was a trans debate. That's
Oh,
what I
don't
thought.
even.
Non-binary
That's what I
people
thought.
are
No, I
people
will
as far as
fall
the
under
trans
trans
gets
umbrella.
concerned.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you could educate yourself a little bit
I
on
think,
that,
Okay.
I think I
and
could
maybe
educate
then you would figure out,
I think I could educate
you know, what
right?
the reality is
I'm
and what
sure
trans
there's
actually
a
means.
non-binary Jubilee episode.
I don't know. I think he might feel he's trans just because of how feminine he's presenting. Trans is like you're identifying somewhere in between, right? And I don't think he has gender dysphoria, because if you have gender dysphoria, especially, a man transitioning to a woman, you want to shave your beard, right? Because that's an insecure part. You don't want to be like, I feel like a woman, but I'm going to keep this beard anyway. Like, that's not gender dysphoria. So I think maybe he considers himself trans and non-binary just because of how feminine he's presenting, but like, I don't know. Like, it might be like, I don't know if it's like insensitive, but if you're a man who presents like this, super feminine, just be a man who presents feminine. Like, you're still he, him. It makes it less complicated. You don't have to keep yourself in this non-binary box and have to stay that way. Like, just, you can be a feminine man, you can be a masculine woman and still be she, her, and he, him. Like, you don't have to find a label for exactly what you are, because then now you're confined to it. Just be like, I don't know, just have fun with makeup. Like, also, okay, probably unpopular opinion, but I think his outfit is cute. The white, like the jumper and stuff together, and then the heels. It's cute. I don't know if I'm a fan of the makeup look, but I don't know. I kind of like the outfit. Blair was calling him a clown and stuff. Oh, let me see. Well, it's the way that Blossom asks how often does that happen, and as soon as Sarah replies, Blossom immediately shuts her down. That's true. It starts going, no, that doesn't happen. Right. She knows it does too. Like, it's not a secret.
Wow, it's
Well, because it's not a debate about who is really trans and who is not.
It can be.
We're talking about restrooms as a trans non-binary person. When I go into
Yeah.
a place that only has men's and women's restrooms, and I'm dressed like this, my choice to go into the men's restroom at that point puts me in danger.
6 years ago when I've transitioned almost 8 years ago, but 6 years ago, it was never an issue for me to use the women's room. Girls would literally drag me in there with them and say, girl, you need to be in our bathroom. And I was like, I felt uncomfortable back then. I don't pass. I know I don't pass, so that's a me problem. And I'm not gonna turn my fear of being attacked in the men's room into a woman's problem. It's still a me problem, so I need to work on myself. And it sucks. Does it suck? Yes, it sucks. I don't pass. I know I don't pass. But I still respect women enough, and some trans people aren't capable of handling themselves against a man, but I am confident in my ability to do that. And not everybody can, I get that. But It's just now, 6 years ago, I used to use the women's room. Now I don't, because women have spoke out. They've come out and said, we're not comfortable. There's too many self-ID'd people out there just taking advantage. And I choose to use the men's room to protect them.
I love that. I love Jessica. I could see how it could be a weird situation for them too. You know, because they're the perfect. This person is the perfect example of like they're actually trans because they're trans, but you know, since they don't pass very well, people might think, oh, that's just a man in a wig and a, you know, a skirt or whatever. And I feel bad because, you know, she has good intentions, right? She wants to use the men's restroom to keep women safe. If only all of them thought like that, it would be like so easy. But yeah, we love Jessica.
We actually almost empathize with a lot of trans women and their experience in the bathroom and a lot of the turmoil with going in and you know, especially with passability. But the layer that I feel like in the conversation that's missing here is actually trans men. And also the fact that I was born biologically female, and a lot of the things that trans women experience of violence in the bathroom is what I experienced as a child. So the reason why my education here is not necessarily to create an idea that I need to conform to Eurocentric standards. Myself, I'm a 6 foot tall trans man, size 13 shoe, so I don't fit into the Eurocentric standards of what a woman is, and I never did as a child. I was you know, bullied relentlessly for this and isolated from many spaces. So this discussion about trans women being in the restroom also affects biological women, because guess what, you know, biological women come in all shapes and sizes. There are, you know, a lot of lesbian women that deal with this issue that I've related with and empathize, because we both get pulled out of the restroom and thrown in, and guys try to beat us up because we're in a restroom with women. And then on top of it, to add that layer that it's not even being discussed in any mainstream, that this is just completely wiped out, and that you're standing up for women, but you're not standing up for women children. You're not standing up for biological females that are children. You're only standing up for what really affects you. And it's kind of sad that the idea that passability is you need to work on your transition. A lot of folks, especially in our community, have no access to finances, resources, jobs, to even get their foot in the door, to get access to hormones. So you're putting all of these barriers just for them to be able to go to the restroom, which is a natural thing that we all have to do. So what do I need to do? Piss outside? Because that's how I was treated my entire childhood.
I do agree that, you know, not everyone has access to hormones and stuff because it's, you know, it can be crazy expensive for that stuff. But I don't know about you guys, but I didn't hear like gender dysphoria in there. All I heard was a lot of trauma from, you know, being a taller girl or a bigger girl, or and getting made fun of for it, like having big feet or whatever. Like, I don't know, do you guys think that he transitioned to male because he was like, oh well, I guess, you know, I have the body type for a man, so I might as well just do that? Like, I didn't hear like, you know, I was dealing with this since I was little and I just wanted to be the other gender, but it was because he was bullied about how he looked from a young age that maybe kind of coerced him into transitioning. Like, I don't know. What Shane's talking about is also very real. I'm being biological woman, have had many people ask me if I'm transgender before, and I couldn't imagine if I was in a woman's bathroom and was thrown out, because that's so true, right? I couldn't even, like, I don't even know how to speak on that, because like, yeah, I mean, if you're just a woman who's more masculine and getting confused with a man and getting thrown out of your own restroom, I don't even, like, I can't even begin to describe how that feels. Excuse me. I also very much agree with you. I feel like society told Shane that since he didn't fit into the standards of a woman, that he was a man, and so he kind of went with that. See, yeah, I feel that way. I could be reaching, and this is 100%. I mean, you know, we don't know what he went through when he was younger. Like, you know, maybe he did feel those feelings, and the bullying kind of accentuated that and made it even stronger. But the problem is he just said too that women come in all shapes and sizes, right? And if he truly believed that, then he could have still been a woman right now. But I think because of the fact that he was bullied so much and being thrown out of women's restroom because they look more masculine, that might have just thrown him into being like, I might as well just be a man. Right? And that shouldn't be the reason why you should have to transition. It should be because you feel gender dysphoria and this is what's going to make you feel the happiest in your life. But I don't know. I feel bad for Shane, kind of.
I just feel like when this whole topic comes up, like it obviously goes back to like there's dudes like jerking off in the bathroom, and like to me, like when I hear that, I'm like, okay, like but that's not trans women. So when we talk about this conversation,
True.
and it seems like the fear is like literally cisgender straight men who are being creeps, and what sucks is cis straight men can be like creepy, and then it's like trans women and trans men are like paying the price for that, and I feel like, you know what, that's what's really hard about it, is because then I think people get the idea, or some people have the belief trans women are just like, they're just men in dresses, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like for so many trans women and so many trans men, the safest place for them is the bathroom that aligns with their gender. And if you go to a place where it's illegal to do that, or you have to go and like, what's your ID or like your birth certificate, it puts you in an objectively unsafe situation. And for me, like I'm like, if I walk in the women's room, I mean, I know I like look like a lot, like I look 12, but like I feel like someone would be like, get out of here, you know what I mean? But like, that's the vibe. Like I think you got to remember, like when we're talking about it and we're talking about like these creepy dudes like in the bathroom.
Here's
they're
the
not
middle
trans
ground.
women.
Here's the middle ground. Y'all ready?
See, Sasha, I think, okay, out of all the liberal people on this panel, I think Sasha has been the most understanding. It doesn't seem like they're delusional on the whole topic. They're at accepting the fact that there is, you know, men who are not actually trans going into women's restrooms and, you know, trying to make them uncomfortable. So, yeah, I like Sasha so far. You know, I'm more leaning on the conservative side of this argument, but, you know, I want to acknowledge that Sasha, it was a good statement.
We're going to be so happy with this. This is the middle ground. We all actually agree. It's men that are the problem. It's not trans women, real trans women. However, the problem is our community has really eroded any barriers to actually being trans, in the sense of your average cross-dresser can identify as a trans woman.
But then it's not a trans woman.
Well, I'm glad
Right.
you feel that way. I feel that way as well. I agree with you wholeheartedly. However, with the state of the political correctness within the trans community, you can't really say that. Like that
Right.
person
Wait, so
is,
is this person
and
saying
their
they're a
self-ID.
cross-dresser?
No, I
No,
actually
they
agree.
say the
No,
trans woman
right.
cross-dresser.
I actually do agree with you, Blair, 100%.
I take my
because
back.
Wow.
Oh.
that's one of those things. Yeah, I told you, I'm
Let's
really
go.
like that.
Oh my God.
And the reason why I say that is because sometimes when we self-identify, some people can take advantage of that, and that is something.
Wow, Blossom admitting that. Okay.
Unfortunately, that we cannot control. But we have to combat it with facts, with research, and with the information that is presented in front of us. It seems like we're the ones that's teaching everybody else because we live in a predominant cis world. We're teaching them about us. And I just really think we cannot afford to be intellectually dishonest about our experiences as trans people.
There is something that I think we can do. There's solutions to this. Like I do think that something like you have to be on hormones or something like that for 2 years or something before you can even change your ID, like across the board. That would eliminate the cross-dressers from being able to go there, because then you can say, hey, my ID says this, and you can, and so it shows that you've actually taken steps. It's not about passability. It's about how long you've actually been taking the steps to transition.
In a perfect world, I could see how that would work. Like, you know, I don't want it to be about passability because it's, you know, some people don't have the choice on whether or not they pass well or not. But also the problem is that if this was a system that was put in place, you'd have to have someone standing outside the restroom asking for everybody's ID before they go in. Like, what does your ID say? Does it say female? Does it say male? All right, go and use that restroom that it says. Like, you know, I think it would make, I don't know. I could see how, like, in your head it would be a good system, but there's just a lot of things that would have to be put in place that could make a lot of people uncomfortable.
I support the transgender military ban. Agreeers?
I don't know, actually. I'm not really well educated on the like military side, so I guess I'll just hear what they have to say and form an opinion.
I think that oftentimes when you talk about trans people in the military, people forget that most places, if we're talking about feet on the ground and really going into war zones,
Okay.
are really dangerous for trans people. And so it's really an extra risk.
You're talking about the culture that exists over
Yeah,
there.
the Middle
Yeah,
East, you
yeah.
know, it's like
So
that's not exactly
the
trans
friendliest
friendly.
place
It's
for
actually
us,
the
yes.
opposite. The medications that we take sometimes put us in conflict with being able to actually be combat ready. But there is some nuance here, obviously. Like if there was a trans cook or a trans medic, I'm not exactly going to be upset. But for the most part, when it comes to combat,
I hate supporting, like what you just said, I hate supporting it because it goes to the narrative of the should athletes compete in sports, you know, but
trans athletes.
yeah,
shouldn't.
the drugs we take
Oh, she said it?
do weaken us, you know, so we're not, like you just said, combat ready, but we're also not as physically strong as the guy counterparts standing right next to us.
And I will say, like, as a person with HIV, I was diagnosed at 18. I couldn't go into the military, like, because I couldn't get Biktarvy overseas, you know?
Yeah, so I will say, as probably the only person that served in the military on
You
this
have.
entire panel,
Spoke first.
it's okay. The thing about it is, I think that there is a lot of nuance in this. I actually have friends that are currently serving in the military. I think there was a lot of misrepresentation of what the trans ban actually did. You know, you have soldiers, if you have surgeries, they go on profile, which means they can't actually do their job. They can't do PT. If you have bottom surgery, it takes a year. And so as a leader, that person's filling a position of a job of somebody that should be doing it. I don't mind somebody who is actually on hormones going there because there's a lot of people. I mean, people take PTSD medications overseas. They actually take 6 months of medication with them. So a full-out ban, I don't necessarily support because I think that everybody in the military, as long as you can do your job, you can go in there and nobody really cares. But it is those
I agree.
times when if you can't perform your job, that becomes an issue. You talk about with HIV, actually, most people don't even realize this. If you contract HIV while you're in, you can stay in a non-deployable job.
Right. And then also, you know, if we wanted.
So it sounds like it's not a ban on transgender people. It's just, I don't know. Like, it just sounds like, you know, they're going through and finding out whether or not people can do their job, and if you can't, you're out. I get, like, it doesn't matter who you are, I guess. If you're just a person who can't do their job, they're gonna find someone who can. But it doesn't. Is that why they're saying it's a trans ban? Because I don't know. Let's keep watching.
And just get super real, you have the trans suicide rate, and if you really want to compound that by the veteran suicide rate, that's not exactly a concoction for very positive results. So I see how a trans ban could actually benefit us, and Lord knows I'm not trying to get drafted, so yeah, I'm all good with it.
Yeah.
I think it's very discriminatory to keep trans people out of the military. We pay our bills here, we pay our taxes here, we are Americans, we deserve to serve this country as well. However, you all did raise some great points about the concern and safety of trans people. And I do agree that something does need to be done about that to protect us. Who's protecting us in the military?
This comment says if you're having gender affirming surgeries or taking hormones, then you cannot be in the military because it affects your performance. But if you're just a trans person in general, you're allowed to serve. Okay, that makes sense. I guess that makes sense. If you're taking hormones, that, you know, it can affect how you're right. That makes total sense. I think. Okay. Like, the whole discriminatory thing is like, it can get out of hand because it can turn into anybody who gets turned away from the military, they're being discriminatory. So, like, you know, I feel that the military has the ultimate decision on whether or not, like, choosing. Sorry, my sister's coughing in the background. They're choosing the strongest people to be able to perform in the military. So I think, like, whatever their decision is that helps the military perform at its best, I think that should be it. It's not about, like, oh, trans. I don't know. I'm kind of sus on this prompt right now. All right, let's keep going.
Who is?
I mean, if you're even diagnosed with like mild social anxiety, you're not eligible to enter the military. If you have like a crooked left, pinky toe, you're not eligible. So discriminatory, I mean, that word sounds pretty in today's climate very much like, oh no, discrimination, but it's not always bad. Sometimes it's for
Yeah.
the safety, and it's like, when it comes to the military and when it comes to keeping America safe, that has priority over anyone's feelings.
Yeah,
Discrimination
I agree.
is discrimination, and I don't think there's
not always a
any
negative
other way
thing, though.
around it.
Well,
It's
when-
still
When you say
discrimination.
protect,
That doesn't mean it's
protect
negative, though.
Our troops over there, while they're over there, you're talking about, or protect them before so they can get in.
Both. It is important to protect all trans people in the military.
Well, we can't waste
And so what if the
resources
best way to protect them
protecting
is not putting them in the Middle East with Muslims that are going to kill them?
Well, I just want to interject your point about suicide. So as somebody who has worked in community service with community members directly, a lot of their suicide issues actually revolve around access to finances. And the military is one of the highest employers of transgender people. So we actually see the suicide rate drop. And
Well,
for me
that's a good
personally,
point, but it's one of the highest employers of anybody.
But if you're suicidal and you go into a job that has a high likelihood of PTSD, causing PTSD and all these other issues, then it becomes a big issue because then you already have one mental illness, and then you're compounding it
That's
with more.
true.
And when
Sarah's
you're
killing
on,
it.
a very strict regimen of, if you're trans and if you're really trans, and we can get into who's really trans later because I'm
Yeah,
happy
I
to say
wanna know
about
what
that.
you're
But
talking about
if you're going to
that.
be on hormones, right? You're not always going to have access to those drugs when you're deployed and when you're in those situations. That's why I say if you're, a line cook or something, if you're whatever, that's one thing. But if we're talking about combat, you're not exactly going to have access to your testosterone blockers and your
How do you know that? Because medical
they
care
don't have
is
those kind of
covered in the
pharmacies in the Middle
Medical
East.
care is covered in the military, so they should have access to that. So that is false information.
Not
and also,
necessarily.
you guys are forgetting
Right,
the fact. Well,
but-
hold on. You guys have all forgotten the fact of what is the flip side for these transgender individuals that are signing up for the military and they're taken out, and that was their life plan. Where are they supposed to work, and where is their employment supposed to be?
No, I
Because the
agree,
mental
but-
illness that
I
happens
agree, it's
through
horrible.
homelessness and the lack of resources
agree,
that
it's
come.
horrible.
So that is also
They
the flip
actually-
side of that. So if folks
but they
don't
didn't
have,
kick
hold
anybody
on one
out.
second, but if they don't have access to a job that could offer them
Take your
support and research and access to medication, access to benefits, lifetime benefits, that's something that most transgender people in any sector of any
So
job.
do you want an answer to your question, or are you just going to round? Because I can answer. You said, what about those people that were kicked out? I actually think it's bad if you are someone who was in it and you really are, because just like, Sarah, and I've met many trans veterans that I've paid respect to publicly on social media, and I think that's amazing, actually. So if you're kicked out and it was once, the norm
But
that
what's
you
the
could,
resources you're
I'm
offering them,
speaking
though?
though. If you're kicked out and it once was the norm for you to participate in the military, that's sad. But at the same time, if that is what is determined for the ultimate safety and effectiveness of the military, nothing should come before that.
Blair,
See, that's what I was saying before. It's the Sarah also said that people weren't kicked out. Also, I feel like with the way that that everything is now, if there was a transgender person that was kicked out of the military, I feel like that'd be like top news somewhere. Like it would be something that everybody sees because we would have known about it, right? And the fact that Sarah's saying that transgender people aren't getting kicked out. Also, I don't know why they're talking so much. Like, I love Blair and the point she made about having the higher ups in the military determine what is the most effective way to run the military. I agree wholeheartedly. But honestly, this is really Sarah's prompt. Like, Sarah's the only one that's been in the military. She knows her shit. Yeah, I love Sarah so far, so let's keep going.
have you ever
Because the
worked
second
directly
bomb,
with
because
trans
the second
people?
bomb,
Have you ever worked
I
directly?
am right now.
No,
We're
directly
surrounded by
in
them.
services in terms of nonprofits
Sir,
and actually
she's a
getting
trans person.
clientele.
She's not
That's my
grassroots.
entire
She is
career.
not a grassroots
Not
person
grassroots.
because truth be told, a lot of our
What does that
community
even mean?
is in grassroots.
Have you ever had a
Nonprofit
client list of
organizations that are
transgender people that
trans-led.
you
Hold
actually
on just
took
a
care
second.
of?
Hold on just a second.
Took care of them, like what, like paid
Trans-led
their
or-
bills? No,
I'm
I don't
sorry,
think
Offering them
so.
excuse me,
services, getting them through
I've helped a
services.
lot of trans people in my life,
Trans-led
yes.
organizations that are ran by trans people. I really want to see what you've done for those organizations because I don't see any of y'all on the front line.
Oh, not her saying that with Sarah right next to her. Are you kidding me? Holy shit. Saying you not. Okay. God damn. So this is the part where Blair was saying they were coming for her in her career. Because they're all out here saying that if she's not physically in these centers helping trans people, she's not doing anything. But I think Blair has been has had the most impact out of anybody on this panel. Like, no shade to any of them, but Blair has been increasing the amount of trans acceptance, because there's so many trans people that have these crazy ideologies, but Blair's the most level-headed, common sense one. And I think that, like, because if all you're seeing about trans people is that they're gonna be how these people on TikTok are, I would be like, I don't like that. Like, it's true, like, you wouldn't want that, but I don't know. She had her own way of doing it. She literally had made videos and increased awareness about so many things. Like, and also Blair hasn't shaded anyone who works in community centers. So I don't know why they're coming for her career like that. Anyway,
The front line.
the conversation got so derailed. I know Blair has had a huge impact. I agree. And you know what? I just found out about Blair like 3 maybe months ago. So I don't know where I've been all these years. But once I found out about who she was, I think I saw her from a TikTok. Like, there was a TikTok about her saying, like, she was like, I consider trans women to be a category of men. And then there was another trans woman on TikTok who like duetted that and was like throwing a bunch of shade and stuff. And ever since then, I've watched so many of her videos, and I was like, I used to be super left liberal, like, because I grew up in a super conservative household. And I came out gay a few years ago, and I had to leave my whole, situation. I was super religious, and I had to leave it because, I couldn't live gay in there. And so for a while, it was just, I support anyone being whoever they want to be, right? Because that, if it makes you happy, you should. But I started watching Blair's videos, and she kind of showed like how far it's gotten with, like, I don't know if you know who that girl is on TikTok who has all the colorful makeup, and she's like, how to use like frog's pronouns or pumpkin spice pronouns. Like, I don't know if you know who that is, but like, I'm like, holy shit, this has gotten so out of control. And it brings a refreshing realness that you don't see a lot. And frankly, I think I was kind of brainwashed from all the shit on TikTok.
Like, what are you talking about? I've dedicated, hold on. I've dedicated my entire life to, in my own way, and you can disagree with it because we all have our vehicles and our methods towards promoting trans acceptance and the ultimate progression of the quality of life of trans people. I've dedicated my entire life to that, right? I access millions of people every single month on all my social media. And I have people reaching out all the time saying that I've saved them from, just like we mentioned, suicide.
What are you physically
doing?
Physically.
See, the physically, I don't get that. She literally is. You're sitting down making a video. Everyone says it's like it's so easy, but Blair's in the spotlight, and she has to do research and constantly be updated so that she's giving accurate information about shit that's going on. That's physical, if you ask me, right? Except her method is she's sitting in front of a camera that's gonna reach a shit ton of people, right? Like, no shade to people doing community service work. That's great. Like, there's some people who may not have internet and, not know who Blair is, but like, everyone's doing their own thing. I don't know why they're coming for her, because they're all doing their own thing to promote trans acceptance. But I don't know.
Have you ever taken on a client loan? Have you ever had someone come to you homeless and give them resources?
I'm sure you guys feel very, you guys are asking questions and you have no interest in the answer. I'm sure you guys are very, very proud of the fact that you can walk
in circles, Blair. That's what we're
saying.
How could it be a circle when I haven't answered the
Blair's
question
going in
at all
circles.
because you keep speaking? I'm sure you guys are very proud that you can enter a building and work with 25 people at a time. I access millions every month, babe. That's what I do.
It's really disappointing that you would ever equate community services.
This is disappointing, actually.
It's disappointing that you would disrespect all of the people that are in community service and all of these social workers that actually do help trans people.
And it's really disappointing that you guys are disrespecting what the fuck I do, right?
When you say something about what is grassroots, that's the problem that I feel that some trans
using a
influencers
metaphor
are disconnected.
for something that's
That is not a
professional.
They're gonna
metaphor.
speak in platitudes
That
the
is
whole
a
time. That's
tangible
what they're gonna do.
resource organization. Because this is where y'all's privilege come in. Because if y'all don't need
My privilege?
services,
Not her. Okay. Oh, geez. Here we go.
My content is a resource.
If you do not need
First of all,
services
ma'am, don't come for my
nonprofits
privilege.
that are trans-led, you have
I was raised by
privilege
drug
and you
addicts.
have
I have
access.
HIV.
I'm sorry.
I create the resources.
Jesus Christ.
I create the resources. My content is a resource.
Okay. I think it's funny that Blossom is talking about privilege, because you have Andrew right here, who was raised by druggy parents and has HIV, right? I don't know if you guys know this, but Blossom has been to the White House. She has been on the Ellen DeGeneres show. She has had a full ride through college paid for by Caitlyn Jenner. Not because of accomplishments she's made in life, but because of her identity. She's a black trans woman who's so oppressed, and she has had all these opportunities given to her because of who she is. Imagine having your entire scholarship paid for by Caitlyn Jenner, and you're telling everyone else on the panel that they're more privileged than you. Oh, Jesus Christ. Blossom is so defensive. Everything is an attack. Exactly.
So we're going to work with detransitioners who actually need our help.
But we're not talking about military.
Oh my
so-
God.
Give you another one, but I'm gonna give you one more chance.
It's the condescension for me, you know.
I will take a step back and let other people have. An
I feel
opinion.
like so like Blair said, like
And
when you
Blossom
wanna
is
go
so
into the
hyper.
military, like they gotta like check you out and like, are you fit to go into the military, whatever. For that reason, I don't feel like a ban on trans people in the military is necessary, because I feel like who's ready to go to combat and who's ready to go in, like they'll get in. I think there are people who are like able to do that, maybe people who aren't. And I feel like that will be determined without just a ban across the board. And
I agree.
yeah.
So it wasn't actually a full ban, though. That's what people don't realize, okay? So
You can still enlist.
nobody got kicked out of the military. They didn't kick
Yeah.
a single person out of the military
Oh.
who came forward and had gender dysphoria. Two, it was actually easy. It's more open to serve under the ban than it was under Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
Okay? So you could actually be a trans person and present however you wanted off duty. You could go to a ball in a dress and nobody cared, and they couldn't kick you out. And serving in the military, it's not a right. They can disqualify you for any reason, physical, anything. People get kicked out all the time because they can't pass PT tests.
Right.
And overseas, yeah, you don't necessarily have access to refrigerators for your testosterone or any of that other stuff. So if you're taking injections, it's a lot
I'm
different.
supposed to refrigerate it?
I don't know. I don't take
And that's gonna
testosterone.
melt in the Middle Eastern sun, believe that. That estradiol is gonna be
Female
blue goo.
hormones are not always refrigerated. Let's just make that.
So it's not even a ban. Like, it's just, you can't. Interesting. Okay, so this whole prompt is worded really bad.
clear.
Well, my concern would be that, like, who's joining the military not to serve in the country, but only to get the cheaper drugs and the paid-for surgery? And I don't want that trans person
Okay,
defending
who's
our
joining the
country.
military because they got a woman pregnant and they just need to pay their bills. There's so
I
many
don't
different
want that
reasons why
person
people
either,
join the
because I
military.
want
And also
dedicated
there
people.
are easier
I want
ways to get
dedicated people that want to defend the country that I live in.
There are
and
easier
protect
ways to get drugs.
us.
There are easier ways to get drugs and to join the military. That's a big commitment to
Let's
get
just
drugs.
put it this
to-
way.
to-
There are
to
far
do it
less
for high school, too,
debilitating
or
things that will
education.
disqualify you from access to the military than trans. And if you want to
Yeah.
put it on a scale, trans is one of those things that for a lot of people is quite debilitating, whether it's mentally, physically, whatever. If you have, you know, social anxiety, if you have depression, any of these things that are less mentally taxing than gender dysphoria, all those things, then why is it that we should have like a go around because we're trans? I go with what the generals say. I go with what the people at the top say. This is what is the most effective way to have our military.
Just not General Milley.
I just really
Just
hope
not
that the
General
people
Milley.
at the
No,
top
not
that you're
him.
re-
You know what
I
I
just
mean? It's
really hope
levels
that
to
the
that,
people-
too.
I just really hope that the people at the top that you're referring to aren't transphobic, because let's be clear, of the isms that are in the
God.
military.
Man, we live
that
in
a lot of us
America.
face.
People are allowed
Excuse me,
to
I'm
be.
speaking. Do not interrupt a black trans woman when she's speaking.
Oh shit. Oh, that was the famous line. Oh, here we go. It's about the black. Oh my god, do I have to keep reacting? It's just I don't want to hear it. Okay.
Very
Me
clear,
hella
when it comes to
times.
when
Hella
it comes
times.
to isms.
Did the interrupter just
Again,
say
if you
use
are
your
black,
skin tone
if
to
you
say
are
you couldn't
black,
interrupt her?
if you are black and
That's
trans
amazing.
and you want to go into the military, I am quite sure that my experience would not look the same as y'all's.
Okay.
And if you can't wake that up, then we're really being complicit.
They don't look at your race.
I don't think your
But you-
skin tone makes any difference.
Well,
As someone-
yes, it
again,
does.
no,
Well,
as
I'm
somebody-
sorry.
no, as somebody who's
But it
serving in the
doesn't.
military,
For you to
as
tell a
somebody
black
who- no,
person that is so
as somebody who's
problematic.
serving.
Oh my god, look at Blossom's fucking face.
For you
So
to
why
tell
do
a
you have to
person of
put
color
black in
here,
front of it?
because I am. This is my experience and this is my reality. First of all,
It has
that
nothing
is
to do
so
with your transness,
disrespectful
though.
to tell a person
I'm
of
gonna have an
color, a
aneurysm.
black person, how they should feel. How dare you sit up there
Okay,
and
well,
say
She needs to
that?
calm
As
down.
somebody
As
who's
a white
saying, hold on
person,
just
You
a second. Let me
screamed
finish
at
my
him,
point.
and you
I
just
did not
didn't-
scream
yes,
at a
you
point.
did.
No,
No, you're
you
being
wanted me to come
disrespectful.
back.
Rewind the tape,
You
you
wanted me
screamed.
here, and I'm
You
here.
screamed.
So which you
Rewind
going
the
to?
tape, that was
You wanted me here, so I'm here.
replay.
Blossom is doing too much. It's way too much. It's not even about color. Like nobody even brought that up. It's oh my god.
You in
Right,
particular.
so we just want you to
Let's
calm
go.
down and speak like
No,
a
it's
man.
not my-
Particular, what
it's
are you
not my
talking
fault.
about?
It's not my
Let's
fault that
pause.
y'all don't understand respect.
Sorry. Let's pause.
You're
Oh
interrupting
my
everything.
god.
Can you please stop?
Okay.
We're good.
Ew.
You need to calm down.
No,
Oh
you
We're
do,
gonna
honey.
change the rules.
my god. Someone get a Xanax for her.
Keep it
Let's-
cute, girl. Keep it real cute.
Oh,
Your
that's
bodyguard's
inappropriate, but
outside,
the rest
keep
of
it
shit
real
isn't.
cute,
Okay.
ma'am.
Oh shit, that's the line. That's the threatening line. You know, I heard the other day that Blossom was on this podcast out here saying how she never threatened Blair and that it was Blossom who felt unsafe in this entire thing. Can you imagine that? She's literally the biggest bodied person in here and she's the one that's out here saying, you know, you got a bodyguard outside, but keep it real cute. Like, what exactly does that insinuate? It's literally a threat. Also, I'm kind of surprised it's still in here because Jubilee is a heavily left-leaning platform. And you would think that they would have edited it out so that there's no proof. It would have just been word of mouth from Blair that Blossom threatened her. But now it's concrete proof, right? So, I mean, here we go.
The rules are you cannot speak.
Oh, yeah, Blossom was on a podcast. I think she joined. It was a podcast, I think maybe a day or two after this episode was released. And they were going through this debate and she was saying how she felt threatened by her safety was threatened and that she never threatened Blair. And I'm like, oh my god.
Somebody else is speaking.
Fair.
Okay? We haven't found a middle ground. That's okay.
And apparently the comments under that video, the podcast she was on is a very left podcast, super liberal, and there were even comments under that podcast that was calling out Blossom. So imagine her own fans calling her out for the shit that she did.
I think we did.
Okay.
I feel like there was a little bit
Yeah,
mixed in there.
Yeah, I agree with what y'all were saying. It wasn't really like I thought it was great.
So
or whatever
imagine
was
when we
competitive.
disagree. That'll be fun.
I feel like it was really interesting hearing your perspective about being in the military, and I don't know if there's really like a true middle ground found, but I feel like
Yeah.
I have like a better understanding of kind of where you're coming from with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of points make sense, and it's also an issue that is hard to get a definitive answer and agreement on.
Everybody doesn't have
See, Sasha was great. Also, this was Sarah's prompt. Like, she killed this. I really like Sarah so far.
the same struggle. And that does include in the military. Some people in our community have to go through much more extremes than others. And so for me, my question becomes, how are they being taken care of? Especially when a trans person comes out in the military. Yeah, we have these things enacted, but that doesn't mean that in reality and in physical time that they're being treated under what is in the law that's supposed to protect them. So that's where I'm coming from or whatever, because reality and what's on paper are two different things.
But they are. So this is again the culture of the military. This is a debate that we have as civilians that the military doesn't have. Okay, just plain and simple. If you
Makes
can do
sense.
your job, nobody cares who you are, what you do,
Exactly.
what your extracurricular activities outside of the military are. All they care is that they can count on the person to the left and right of them. And again, like I said before, in the very beginning, if you can't deploy and you can't go do your job, then there's really not a big reason for you to be there.
Exactly.
And to agree with your point, I'm not in the military, nor am I a military general, but I trust that military generals know how to get their troops deployment ready. And if someone is able to go through all the rigorous steps, take out the trans, but they've been able to meet medical, health, all of the hoops that need to be met, I don't see any reason to take away someone's opportunity to serve this country and to be proud of serving this country because
Sarah is so well spoken, instantly follow. Yeah, I'm gonna do that too. Sarah has been making some really good points, and she's so calm too. Like with all the chaos, amazing. I've never heard of her before this debate, so I'm definitely gonna follow. If she has like a YouTube, I think she has a YouTube too. So I'm gonna follow it. I really like it.
Because being American is something to be proud of.
Yeah, and like the trans ban didn't actually do that. Like I said before, you just couldn't go actually like take hormones and transition while you were in, and there was a lot
Oh, see, so
different.
it's not even a ban.
I served in 2010 to 2011 before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, so I know what it was like before that as well.
And I totally agree with what you're saying. So there's some middle ground.
Let's go, people.
Group hug.
I'd be pissed if I was Blair.
Schools should include trans conversation in sex ed. School.
I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it maybe okay. Obviously, there's gonna be kids who feel that they're trans, right? Some kids may not say it, you know, because they're it's until they come out. But I don't think elementary and middle school kids should be talking about this shit. I think if you're like a junior or senior in high school, where you really like, because let's be real, like in high school, it's when we're all like starting to like experiment and, you know, do all that stuff. I think that, you know, it shouldn't be in the main curriculum, but if there are kids who do feel and identify with trans, that it should be an optional course for them to take. I mean, it'll keep them safe. And like, you know, Andrew has HIV. I think he said he got it from 17 years old. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea as an optional course. You know, I think everyone should know about male and female anatomy and things like that, but just sex ed, trans, I think it would be a good idea if it was optional for the kids who wanted it.
Schools should include trans conversation in sex ed.
Now I don't. Okay, because here's the thing, right? With the way things are in schools now, with teachers in elementary school teaching gender ideology, and you know, they're teaching sex to kids like when they're 8 years old. It's actually really disgusting. Like they're okay. It starts with pronouns, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, you're teaching the kids pronouns. Pronouns it was a unit in the curriculum that we had to learn anyway. Like when I was a kid, we had to learn about pronouns. It wasn't about gender. It was just about, you know, he, she, you, me, I, like, you know, these are the words that you use when you talk to somebody or about yourself, right? Now it's become, when you hear they're teaching pronouns, it's now there's this thing about like, you know, gender, and if someone doesn't really feel like a boy or a girl, you use this. So it's confusing the children, and it's so unnecessary. I don't think that children they should just be kids, right? Like sexuality should not be brought into it at a young age. Like the kids should just be kids, right? Like I'm gay and stuff, and like, you know, even with, because I knew I was gay since I was 6. I know that's a super young age, but I remember being like, I have crushes on boys in school instead of girls. Like, why do I feel this way? I don't know how I would have felt if it was constantly in my face all the time. Like, you know, if there's a classmate that has, you know, there's gonna be classmates that has 2 mommies or 2 daddies, right? And you go and tell mommy like, hey mom, like, how was your day? You know, how's your day, honey? Oh, it was good. It's just, there was a classmate that has 2 mommies, or, you know, has 2 daddies. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, you know, sometimes some kids have 2 mommies and 2 daddies, but we'll talk about it more when you're older. Okay, like it's or have an age appropriate discussion so that it's not like a shock when they hear about it, but you know, like it's more normal, right? 2 mommies, 2 daddies, some kids have it, great. There was this whole it wasn't even trans, it was gay that was going on. I don't know if you heard about it, but it was they were banning certain gay books, I think, from libraries in Florida, from elementary middle schools. And you know, when you hear it, it sounds, oh, why are they banning gay? Like, you know, I don't know if they should do that. It seems kind of extreme, but if you actually dug into it, I actually supported it, because I'm like, listen, this should not be in an elementary school or middle school library, right? There was this book called This Book is Gay, and it was just a rainbow book. It said this book is gay, and it was just a rainbow flag on it, right? And that's the book that they used in their picture to like cause more outrage. But if you read what was in that book, super sexual. Yes, it was. It was talking about how to use grinder. It was talking about sex positions. It was talking about kinks. It was talking about how to use a dildo. All this fucking shit. All this shit, right? In an elementary school and middle school classroom. And so there was this video of this man who went in a room full of people on the board. I think it was like the educational school board or something. And he was reading exactly what was in the book, word for word. And the person on the board said, "Sir, your language is inappropriate." And everyone in the audience was like starting to rile up because they're like, "Yo, what are you talking about? His language." He's like, "This is not my language. This is the language that's in the book that you guys permitted for children to read." And they were out here saying, "You need to stop." And they had him escorted out of the room. So if adults can't handle words like that, then what the hell makes you think that a child can? So in that situation, I agreed, but people just see surface level and are like, "Oh, they're banning gay from schools," like awful people. But honestly, it was good. Like for that book and all the other ones that's super explicit that kids don't need to be reading, I agree.
Join our Middle Ground Patreon to watch this exclusive prompt.
Oh, it's on Patreon. Damn.
It's okay for minors to get top surgery.
Absolutely not. I don't agree. They should not be making any decision like that. This is going to affect them for the rest of their life. Most of these top surgeries and any kind of gender affirming surgery impacts your life in such a drastic way that you can never recover from it. Like most of these surgeries destroys your reproductive system. You get top surgery, that's it. That's a wrap for you, honey. You can't breastfeed your children if you can even have any. Like, why do they have these limits for kids to be like, you can't get a tattoo under 18. You can't drink until you're 21. And I saw a clip. I think Blair said you can't even go on a tanning bed until you're 18 in California. But you can go and have top surgery and remove an important part of your body that you're going to need for the rest of your life. It doesn't make any sense.
Really?
You guys waited on that?
That's pretty vile.
I feel like the vibe is like like as someone who had top surgery and went on hormones, like it's a very emotionally intense experience. I think in terms of like minors getting surgery, like the reason why I'm not like no to that is because I feel like maybe someone's like 17 or something. I honestly feel like it is a really intense surgery, but I feel like if somebody's like 17 or like late 16 and like feels like it's right for them, I mean, like people are really different. I know for me, like top surgery when I was like 16 would have been like so good and it would have literally like saved my spinal cord from like binding all the time. That's why I'm like, yeah, like I feel like in instances like it can make sense.
Damn, there were so many likes in that sentence. Also, okay, I think one of the only reasons that this is even being talked about is because people who transition at a later age are like, "I really wish I could have done this when I was younger." So they're advocating for it to be done younger because they're like, "I wish I did it younger. So let's help someone." But the problem is I heard about statistic where there was, I can't remember what it was from, but it was like 69% or so youth who feel that they're trans, like during their teenage years, eventually grow out of it through their later teen years when they're almost complete through puberty. And so I think it's a conversation of, well, if they transition younger, they'll pass easier, right? But the problem is that you have to take puberty blockers and you're going to be getting these surgeries that's going to affect you for the rest of your life just so it's easier for you to pass, right? Which I do not think is a fair exchange at all. I think you should do the puberty that your body has allowed. And I think some people don't want that because some people have a puberty where, they grow super tall and they didn't want that, or they're super broad and they don't want that, or their voice is deep and they wanted to get it before their voice got deeper. So like, I don't know. I don't see where they're, okay. I don't even know how to phrase this to make it sound like I don't support this, right? But I see why people who are older who feel that they should have transitioned younger are advocating for this. I just don't think it's okay though.
So I'm not a trans man, so I don't have the experience or whatnot, but I do think that it has to be done safely. There is a process when it comes to having these types of gender affirming surgeries. You know what I'm saying? Talking with your parents and then going to endocrinologists and going through therapy to make sure this is right for you. People have a choice to their autonomy. Now, I know
Not a
that
child.
everybody does not,
Yeah.
but those that do or whatnot should choose with the right medical education.
Yeah.
They should choose with safety and with full understanding of what is a benefit and what may not be a
There's
benefit.
never full
I agree with
understanding.
the caveat that there does need to be some.
A
sort of-
child will never fully understand it. Like all they know is if I get the surgery, I'll feel good, and that's it. There's no future. It's just right now. A child won't understand that deep into it.
process, which there is, by the way,
Yeah.
in place.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes there's a slip through. Yes, things happen because, again, as I said earlier, this is a big world. But to, again, negate people the ability to walk through a door that you have walked through, I'm going to say this again, and then close it behind you, is a little bit of a slap in the face for anybody who's seeking transition.
Yeah.
And as somebody who has experienced top surgery and also waited quite a bit of time, a lot of severe damage actually was created to my rib cage that my wife, who is half my size, actually has the same size rib cage in the back as mine. And these are permanent damage to my body because I binded for about 8 years, and there's even still issues that I have with breathing and certain issues that I face that you know, unfortunately, if I had that surgery a lot earlier, I would have a better posture. I'd have a lot of pain that is not within my body that I have to deal with on a daily basis, while simultaneously the idea that, you know, I get maybe under 16 top surgery would be something that would possibly even make me a little uncomfortable, but I also know that I was homeless at 16, paying my own rent, and left my home at 16 and had to live my life as an adult very early. So I was able to make those decisions for myself, but I think it's weird that others can't seem to see that I could make a medical decision for myself when I had to physically take care of myself. And I look at some of these younger kids, and there's a sense of jealousy there and excitement for them at the same time because they now have access to memories and being in the space and being in a comfortable body that, you know, I had a lot of isolation growing up in my childhood because I didn't feel comfortable to present in a female space or a male space. I was isolated constantly from school, from the outside world, from my family. And my
More
transition,
trauma.
my top surgery has done nothing but take physical pain off my body, especially with as large chested as I was and having to bind for as many years as I did.
So it sounds like he's saying how it's not that the surgery alleviated gender dysphoria, it's that it alleviated pain that he was feeling in his chest and around his back. Like it's not it's more trauma too. It's not that he wanted to be the other gender, it's the fact that it was causing pain to his chest. He was binding for 8 years. It sounds like, I guess, because of how big his chest was at the time. Not because, I don't know, you guys. I don't agree. And also, there's this girl on YouTube. She was on actually a few Jubilee episodes. Her name is Amala, and she's, I believe, the host of the Unapologetic podcast, I think is what it's called. When it got to this point, she had said, that a 16-year-old should not even have to be making these decisions, right? Like, it was unfortunate that he was stuck in this situation where he was homeless at 16, but a normal 16-year-old should not be having to make these adult-ass decisions ever. Like, it's too far in there. Like, he was forced to grow up, unfortunately, which I feel bad, but it doesn't mean that, like, when you're 16 at the time, you think you know everything, you think you got it all under control, but every year that you get older, and then you look back and you think, damn, myself at 16, like, I was a baby. Like, what the hell was I thinking I could make this decision for myself? It sounds stupid when you went to, you know, the far left people when we say that, because they're not old enough to understand that. But when they get older, they'll realize, damn, they were right. What the hell did I know at 16 years old? And why did they let me do this to my body? I feel like we're in a time where it's, people just want to be able to do it, right? Like with as little restrictions as possible. But I guarantee you that in at least 5 to 10 years, there's going to be an outbreak of people being like, yeah, the medical industry is manipulating, and there's so much malpractice, and they let me do this to my body when I was 12 and 15 and 16. I guarantee it that shit's gonna come up in a few years. So I'm not looking forward to that. And also the amount of detransitioners that there's gonna be because of how easy it was to transition without all these precautions. It's like, I'm not looking forward.
I don't think any minor should be having life-altering elective surgery or life-altering elective medicalization, period. And so when I work on bills across the country that do ban this for minors, there's a couple things I point out. I point out that I don't think a 16-year-old female who wants breast implants should be able to get that either.
Exactly.
When we look at what we allow minors to do, like surgeries and stuff like that, they're not life-saving. They're not, if you don't get it, you're not going to die.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like having appendicitis and having to get your appendix removed or anything like that. It's elective. I think that's the key point here.
Right.
Agreed.
My thing about surgery, I'm actually vehemently against surgery, like all of it, top surgery, bottom surgery, all of it. Particularly because you need your genitals. Like, it's just that simple.
Hello.
You have these people now who have non-functioning fake penises and vaginas that, you've had issues like, for instance, Richie had, where like your urethra folds in half and then you can't pee no more.
This is about.
Oh, are you against top surgery too? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just surgery in general. I don't think that that's necessarily like you said. It's not like you have appendicitis. It's not like you've got like a bone spur. It's you don't.
I disagree with
not
that because I was
having surgery-
in physical pain, and the moment that I got that top surgery, the pain was
Well,
alleviated.
that means you need a breast reduction, my friend.
It sounds true. It's like,
Binding,
I don't
dude.
know.
Binding
Binding
goes
in
crazy.
general, it
I mean, I
causes
binded
some
for 8
issues.
years. I know, like it sucks.
I know, but like if you just keep binding, like honestly, like my ribs are like, I'm like, ew, I hate my ribs. Like they're all like messed up.
Is
Like,
that an
get your
issue
body
with
type.
safety of binding though? I'm actually curious.
Yeah,
about
like
this.
honestly,
it's the
but
safety
the
of,
thing
of
is
how
too,
they
like
teach you to
I
bind?
think it comes with like the size of your chest. So like I had a big chest, so like
Same.
I had it was the only way. You know what I mean?
Same.
And I did try and like bind like safely, and I did buy like reputable like binder brands, but it is a lot when you're doing it for a really long time
I
and
used to wear
ultimately
it for
like
3 days straight.
I know, me too. Like, and that's what's like you're not supposed to.
Was
but,
was your doctor telling you that that's not safe because you're not even supposed to wear
Yeah,
it
of
24
course.
hours?
My doctor's
straight,
old
right?
school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and I
Mm.
did have
8
to go
hours is-
through like for top surgery and testosterone. Like I had to go through like a really big process, and I think that's my thing is like instead of an age thing, I think there's like there should be a process. You should have to like live as that gender and be seeking care and be having like a therapist for long term and a psychiatrist for long term and an endocrinologist for long term, and like it's really like specific to the person, and I think would be like really rare anyway. But that's just my stance.
That I agree with to an extent.
Yeah.
This is definitely the prompt that I am the most passionate about because I think there are few things more vile,
Oh, yeah.
more irresponsible, more, dangerous than saying a child can consent to permanently removing a body part that serves an extremely important function.
Yes.
Detransitioners all over the country can never breastfeed their children if they can even have them, because if they did other things, that can stop them from having kids at all, right? The idea that a child can consent to a sex change, to gender-affirming surgery, if you believe that, there's really nothing that you can believe they can't consent to, right? Because that's pretty extreme.
Right.
That's permanent body modification under the best circumstances. So you want to move aside all the complications, all the things you can't do, the sterilization, not being able to feed your kids. You can even set that aside. Just the permanent body modification, I mean, you have to be so demented to believe that a child fully understands. I heard a few conversations about, well, if the child fully understands, they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't because they're children.
I'm
That's like how
21
being a
and I
child
still
Like
don't
a
works.
understand.
17-year-old, like if a 17-year-old's like living as male for like 5
The
years.
prompt was
it's
about
like,
minors, and
Yeah, but a
12-year-olds
17-year-old
are
is a
getting
minor.
top surgery. So
Yeah.
it's easy to say, well, if it's 17-year-olds, okay, well,
In my state, that's actually
there's a
legal
nuanced
age.
conversation about even 17-year-olds, I guess, because the age of consent in some places is lower, but that's not what's happening, right? It's 12-year-olds.
When we talk about minors, it's like, what age range are we really talking about here?
Anyone
because
under
the thing
18.
because the thing is, when we talk about detransitioners or whatnot, all I hear is a lot of regret, right? Regret that they got these surgeries, regret of the complications, regret, and that's fine. I'm not taking away anybody's experience because these things do happen. But let's also remember, again, there is a process. Now, I have a lot of empathy for those detransitioners that have gone through the process and they are suffering.
But
I
it's
do
not
have
just
empathy for
detrans
that.
people. It's
But
not
I'm
just
but
detrans
that's where
people.
I'm just talking about in the conversation for this particular conversation. And I understand what you're saying because you're absolutely right. There are more people.
Even
that are
among
doing that.
adults, we all
But-
do different things in
but-
our transition. Some of us
correct.
want bottoms, some of us don't. Some of us want tops, some of us don't.
I
So
understand,
you
but-
need a lot of time as an adult to figure out what you want to do.
Right.
But see, the thing is, though, some adults don't even understand what they want to do. So
Exactly.
that's
See?
the
How can a
thing.
child?
But
Oh my god, I don't know if Blossom was trying to like prove her point by saying that, but she kind of proved the conservatives' point on this part because it's true. Like most adults don't even know what they want to do. Like, how do you expect a child to be able to do that? Exactly what Blair said. It's so true.
But I
see,
wanna- I
children,
wanna
that's,
touch
wait a
on
minute,
one
let's
thing
not,
you
Am I
said.
on a
let's
different
not
planet?
underestimate the power of these kids today, okay? They are very much more educated because they have much more resources and access than we did coming
Wow.
up. So let's be
So
very
they're
clear about
advanced
that.
and they can
when we
consent.
talk
Who
about
else says that?
detransitioners, that has been the main topic here. Or
Their
whatnot.
interaction, did you
But
see
they
that
can
shit?
When we
consent.
talk
Who
about
else says that?
detransitioners, that has been the main topic.
And Jessica
here.
too.
So let's be
So-
very
It's that's true. Blair, you know what? You know who else agrees with that sentence? I can't say it on here, but it starts with a P. We all know what we're talking about.
They're
very clear about
advanced
that.
and they can
when we
consent.
talk
Who
about
else says that?
detransitioners, that has been the main topic here or whatnot. Because we
But
want to
it's
bring
not now.
detransitioners in to the room, so there's a
Great,
space.
we got your point. I would
Thank
like to
you.
open up to everybody else.
To your point about the reason why I'm against it is because, like you said, the children need to go through the proper steps, the parents, the doctors. But in the state of California, if you, as a parent, tell your minor, no, you're not getting this, I'm not affirming your gender, I'm taking your kids away, and the California is going to raise your kids for you. So
Canada
how's
too.
that?
Right.
Canada too.
That's not right.
We also know that like all those safeguards that you're talking about, they're not happening.
Yeah, that's
They're
what I'm
not
saying.
happening at all.
California will
and
take your
we
kids.
know because there was a whistleblower out of St. Louis, and this isn't some conservative whistleblower. She was married to a trans man, and she considers herself queer. So she blew the whistle and said that they had an in-house doctor. If you couldn't find a affirming therapist to sign off on the form, they would pencil whip it.
Wow. Damn, Sarah's killing it right now. Sarah and Blair on top of this shit.
Do you believe that it should happen? Do you believe there should be a process when it
Yes.
comes to medical
Not for children.
transition?
No,
We have to
there's no
stop
right
it, so,
process for
yeah.
kids to hack
Oh,
off
no, I
their
was asking her.
breasts.
I'm sorry. I was
No,
asking
Well,
her.
I
No.
answered because
No,
I'm
you
here in
don't.
the room. So
No.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like personally, like if we're talking about like a 12-year-old getting top surgery, like to me that's just like medical malpractice. Because I know for me, like to get top surgery, like I can only get it at 18 because my insurance covered at 18. But I had to start that process like long before. Like even hormones was a long process. So I think there's like an area of literal like medical malpractice because no like kid at that age should be getting that in my opinion because you do not know. But I do think there are instances where like a 16 or 17-year-old like could get it. And I don't know if that means like banning like below 16 or like whatever, but
So in the UK, it was the, I can't remember what it was. It's the reason why they're shutting down the Tavistock Clinic in the UK though, is because they found that when you start a child on hormone, or on puberty blockers, then hormones, it's basically a foregone conclusion that they're gonna end up having surgery. It puts them on a path to sunk cost fallacy.
I just, again, I don't understand this obsession with other people's children.
it's about caring about
is,
kids.
I'm talking. Oh my God.
It's
Get it
obsession.
together.
I have it together.
We have to stop. Let
Yo, the obsession with the conservatives about other people's kids. If it is your child, it is your choice what you do with your kid.
Just to talk about
But it's not even the parents they're allowing minors to consent to these changes. It's not the parents. The parents are the ones taking them, which, if I'm just, it's like, why the parents also doing it. But also, these doctors are literally telling the parents and the kids together that if you don't do this, that you're going to have a kid who commits suicide. That if you don't do these changes, if you don't affirm their gender, they're going to commit suicide. Right? And so I think it's a literal manipulation that these parents are being received, are getting by these doctors. But also, the kid is in the room and they hear that. So now they think, oh shit, if I don't change, I'm going to die, which is not true.
someone who's at 16 and their level of consent. In the state of California, from my understanding, someone who's 16 can also drop out of high school, which would severely affect their life. And they have access to that decision if they want to, because say they want to get into the job market or whatever their reason is. But they have that option to make that choice at 16. I will agree with you that someone at 12, I'd be uncomfortable with somebody at 12 years old getting surgery completely, because there's still a lot of the world for them to learn about themselves, how to navigate it, et cetera, et cetera. But for us to have access to be able to drop out of high school if we wanted to, and make such a life-changing decision that could affect, you economically, socially, so many different ways. But then to say, you know what, you're not old enough to make this decision, for me, again, as somebody who was 16 and was in such a religious family and all the restrictions that I had, if I didn't have access to those things, I don't know if I would be here. And I've learned a lot through my transition and through my access. And I even grew up in the wild, wild west where everything was still on YouTube and we didn't really even have medical providers really even giving us guidance, and especially trans men. So I find it rather uncomfortable that we're able to make a 16-year-old be able to make that type of decision. An 18-year-old is allowed to go into service, but for some reason.
Okay, first of all, they're 18. Also, if they're 16 years old and they're allowed to make a decision about dropping out of high school to go, like, sometimes in families and, a lot of low income families and, poverty stricken areas, a lot of 16-year-olds may have to drop out of high school because they have to work to help pay the bills in their house because their parents can't, right? And it's not the same comparison, because anybody can go back to school, right? You drop out of school at 16, you can be in your early mid 20s, late 20s, you can be 30s or whatever, but you can go back to school. You can get your GED. You can get that. But if you cut off your breast, you don't get that back, honey. So that was not a good comparison, because you can always go back to school. You can't get your body part back though. So Jamie said dropping out of high school is not permanent in the same way. Yeah, see? Same minds think alike. Body modification, you can always go back and get your D. Exactly. See? Oh my god. Same thought. That's it, period.
Reason we can't give that same access to a kid to have that consciousness, because I can tell you at 16 I knew who I was. I'm not at 12, not at 14, but 16, there's a certain level of consciousness and experience that you've experienced in society that you understand the pocket you fit in.
But just because
Maybe you know who you are, right? And I'm not saying like somebody may. The separation that we have to make is that I knew I was gay since I was a kid, right? But being gay is different, because it's not a gender identity, it's a sexuality, right? It's just somebody you're attracted to. You can, if that changes, great. Now you're attracted to women. All right. So, but nothing on your body physically changes. However, I will say, like, I did know who I was in that sense, but let's say a trans kid does know who they are. It doesn't give them a pass to be able to have these operations before adulthood. So I think, let's say if they're 15, 16 and, yeah, mom, I am trans and I do feel this way. Okay. You can socially transition, tell your friends, tell your family that, you want to go by this name. You want to, have makeup, wear these types of clothes. Great. We'll do that for you if you want to do that. Because that can be reversible. If you don't feel this way, just wear the boy clothes that you wore before and you don't have to wear makeup. At least you didn't cut off anything on your body that you might need, that you will need later in your life. So,
Other bad things happen doesn't mean that that is okay. It's like, so just because they can drop out of school means they should be able to cut their breasts off?
mhm.
Non-binary should not be considered under the trans umbrella.
I agree. It's not. You're non-binary. Sex is a binary. If you're non-binary, you're not trans. What are you transitioning to? That's literally what trans means. You're transitioning from one to the other. If you're non-binary, you're not. Simple.
This is evil.
I think that the concept of a transgender umbrella is inherently an issue, right? Because when you're talking about something as nuanced, complex, full of social dynamics, medical dynamics, so many things to be considered. When you're talking about a transsexual, you should really be specific, right? And this entire concept actually of transgender is relatively new. Like,
This whole prompt is to throw shade at what's his name? It's not Alex. I forgot his name, but you know, the non-binary dude. It's to throw shade. The way he started tapping his thighs with his hands, like, ooh, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, it's true. I didn't like. Why is he even in a trans debate? Does Jubilee think that non-binary is in the trans umbrella, and that's why they brought him? I don't know.
it came about in the 70s or 80s through queer theory when originally it was about transsexuals, which was considered a medical diagnosis, which was a medical process, and it defined something very specific. So for me, when I hear that non-binary, which if I'm to understand correctly, means
I think
that
androgynous.
right,
Yeah.
and it means you identify somewhere in between male and female. That's not what a transsexual is.
The definition of a trans person is somebody whose body has been altered or somebody who identifies as a different gender whose body has been altered via
Right.
hormones or surgery.
And there's two genders, so if you want to say, you identify as a different gender, it has to be one of those two, which
A lot of left people will probably have an issue with Blair saying there's only two genders because, they believe that there's so many genders. Also, there was a shirt I found the other day that said there's 9 genders. It was like, there was 2 transgender on there. I guess trans male and female, but I don't know. It's male, female, and then I guess would you consider trans to be like a third category, like a trans man, trans woman? But the reality is that it's male, female. There's masculine and feminine. It's the only two. That's it. So yeah, there was the shirt I found said male, female, the normal stuff, but then it said gay, bisexual, pan, and bi, and I'm like, you guys, gay, lesbian. Did I say bi twice? I don't know. It was gay, lesbian, bi, pan, right? Those are sexualities. Those are not genders. So, oh my god.
which would make you a transsexual if you're actually trans. I think it makes about
I think gender identities are male, female, and trans. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Because trans, it's like, trans woman is what you are. It's like, I'm a trans woman, right? I feel like that would be, that I can accept because it's true. There's this, it's a real thing that people are. But, people make up a bunch of shit.
about as much sense as saying that bisexual is under the straight umbrella. It's like, no, that's a separate thing. And I think there's beauty in being separate things. There's beauty in having your own lanes. And my concern is there's so much, clearly, as we see today, really heated conversations about trans people that when you start adding in queer theory, non-binary, it just makes it muddy and the people at home, don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Here's the thing about a lot
Mhm.
of the people who identify as non-binary, so to speak. When they do so, they typically don't medically transition.
Right.
And when you do so, that at that point, it's a costume.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Like-
it's
Right.
gender nonconformity, right? And so
Because they
as
can
Blair's
take
saying-
this off. I can't take this off.
Yeah, as Blair's saying.
Oh,
we look
damn.
at
See,
gender
yup, that's
nonconformity.
so true. You look at that dude back there, he can take off that makeup and that outfit and nobody would ever known he was non-binary. But I mean, they will now cuz he's on the internet, but he can take it off. It's so true. It's so much harder for a trans person to take whatever they have off because they won't be able to. It's, yeah.
Conformity, which used to be okay. You can wear what you want. You can present however you want, but it doesn't make you something different. You can't, as Blair was saying, it comes out of queer theory, which is postmodern neo-Marxism, which means that there's no such thing as absolute truth. They don't believe there's truth, so it kind of erodes the structure of society. And it's actually really regressive in a lot of ways because you end up getting it to where it's literally based off of stereotypes, which we've tried to for so long get rid of. Like, it's okay to be gender nonconforming male or gender nonconforming female, and that didn't make you non-binary. It didn't make you trans.
See?
When I meet
Gender nonconforming, a masculine woman, a feminine man, right? But you can still be he, him, and she, her. Like, I know people want to identify somewhere in between. Like, I feel this one day and I feel this the other day, but you can be a tomboy, you can be a femboy, like, whatever. Like, you're feminine, you're masculine, great. But, you know, you don't got to change your gender to fit that. You know, I think that's super important, and I feel that, like, when I was a little kid, I I naturally gravitated toward feminine things, right? Like feminine things that girls did. I used to play with Barbies with my sister. I had kind of an out for that though, because my mom had asked me to play Barbies with my sister, and I had to pretend like I hated it, but I actually really loved it. So, you know, it wasn't sus because it was like, oh, he's playing with his sister. She doesn't really have many friends, so he's being a good brother. Um, but I wanted to play with Barbies. I walked around in my mom's heels. Um, I related mostly with the girls in school, so I always hung out with the girls, and I felt more comfortable around my sister's friends than my own friends, like the dude friends. So, you know, when I was little, I thought that I should have just been born a girl because I'm like, it would be so much easier. Like I could just do the girl things and I wouldn't feel weird about it. But it wasn't until I was older that I realized that you can be a feminine man because I saw, you know, I know it's not a good example, but just in terms of his identity, like James Charles, um, and Jeffree Star, that they enjoy feminine things, but they also identify as a man. And that never clicked in my head until I watched them. And I'm like, huh, so I don't have to be a girl to do girl things. I can still do nails. I can do makeup if I want. I can wear these clothes, but I don't have to be a girl, which is what I thought when I was younger, that I do have to be a girl. So imagine if I was a kid in this day and age with my parents watching me play with Barbies and having these interests. I would probably be in a doctor's office making an appointment for hormone blockers and having an operation. And then imagine I reach that point where I see these videos and I'm like, holy shit, they can just be a feminine man. How come I didn't know that? And now I'm stuck in a life where now I have to be medicated for my entire life, and I lost reproductive system, and now I'm literally like nothing. A lifestyle that I regret. So that's why it's important to not rush and to be patient. I know, like, the doctors are going to make it seem like it's life or death, but it's really not. Um, Agree, I used to be gender fluid until I realized that like I just like being a little bit masculine. I also really enjoy being feminine though. See, and I love being seen as a woman. Exactly. Like, you don't have to confine yourself to that thing. It's just you can be a woman who's more masculine, and they're great. I love those kinds of women. I just feel bad because it's a trend now to be trans and, you know, non-binary and all this stuff. And kids will naturally gravitate to things that are trending, right? If they see all their friends, you know, I'm non-binary this, and, you know, I'm gender fluid, and like, you know, I'm trans or whatever, they're going to want to do it because they're going to fit in and they're going to feel accepted by those people. Listen, we were all kids, so we know what we used to do to feel accepted. So
meet a trans person, right? Like a trans woman, a trans man, there is an inherent camaraderie. Like when you know, mentioned, I can't take this off, part of me almost got a little bit emotional. I know it's hard to believe people think I have emotions, but I really do. And because I saw you in that moment, and I said, you know what, we are similar in that way. We may be different in other ways. We don't know each other very well, but we have that. When I talk to or I'm around a non-binary person, it doesn't really click, it doesn't connect because it is so different. So I think that's inherently, I should be able to see some semblance of my own issue within
own
that person, and
community.
I don't when they're non-binary at all.
And so I have no issue with non-binary people. I just don't think that we're the same.
Yeah,
And
same.
so
See?
when like I was saying before, like when our acceptance rate has completely been destroyed because these people are initiating violence in our name.
Yes,
they're
violence.
Gonna self-ID out of the category, and then we're gonna be the ones left holding the bag.
Sarah's killing it
Yeah,
right now.
it's just, if sex is a binary and you're neither of those, then you're not trans.
Period. That's it.
I think it would be really hard for a cis person to truly imagine what it's like to be trans and what it's like to live with that and be born that way. And I'm not non-binary, and so I really cannot picture what it would, because I'm a binary trans person. I can't imagine what it's like to be in between that. But just like how the cis person can't really truly understand that, it doesn't mean that it's not a thing and it's not real. And I really believe that we have like 85 years like on this earth, and like so many people spend so much time being like sad and uncomfortable in their bodies. And if we were just all comfortable, like if somebody like wants to go by a name and like dress a certain way and they are saying, this makes me so comfortable, this is what makes me happy, there is no reason they shouldn't do that. And my God, there is no reason why we should say, well, you're not a part of this because like this is us and like this is whatever. Because literally like we could all sit here and agree that like non-binary people are like not a part of the trans community or whatever, which is not my opinion. But we could like, that doesn't like change anything. Like we have a vast community. And I believe that non-binary people are a part of the community because I have so many shared experiences with so many non-binary people I know. We have very similar experiences in growing up with dysphoria, with transition, with anything, and nobody has to do anything. Nobody has to transition in a way they don't want to transition. And yeah, like let's be a happy family. My God, let's all just be happy. That's my vibe.
Yeah, or fight.
I feel like that came from a good place. I really do like Sasha. Like I feel like he believes that non-binary is a category of trans because the non-binary people that he has talked to has said that. Like maybe that's the only reason I could feel that he thinks that. But also I think he's saying this because I get kind of empath vibes from him. Like he wants other people to be happy, and so he wants them to feel accepted, which I think is good. But it's the fact that non-binary is not trans. Like there's no way that you can, look at it and think it's not, because it's a contradictory statement. Like you're saying, yeah. But anyway, also, I'm kind of confused on Blair's stance on non-binary, just because there has been moments where, like when Blair had Shapeshifter on her podcast, her Blair White podcast, I think Shape had mentioned that there was a period where they identified as non-binary, and Shape had said, you'll probably hate this when I say it, but identified as non-binary. And she was like, no, I don't hate that. And then also when Sasha was talking about how, just because we don't really understand non-binary, that doesn't mean it's not real. And then Blair made this face like, oh, like, it's really not. So I don't really know where she stands. I mean, obviously there's people that do resemble that, so I guess it's a real thing. The only part that confuses me and I think is difficult is knowing how to address someone by their pronouns. Like they make it seem like, oh, you should automatically know that I use they, them, and if you don't use it, then you're transphobic or whatever, because they say transphobic when it's really not. You're not trans. But yeah, I guess we'll see what Blair's stance is. I've always been confused about that because I get mixed signals.
To fight together.
Yeah, like
because
let's do
honestly,
it. Like
we have
unite.
separate fights though. That's the thing.
No, we
I don't know if it
We're
is.
weakening our borders by creating this divide within our own community. This is so silly. Look, I actually understand like a lot of the points that are being made here from the conservative side because I grew up conservative. I voted when I was 18. I voted for fucking Bush. Y'all.
Damn, girl.
Like I was conservative, okay?
So we're the same age.
So it was not until my later age that I kind of decided, like, you know what? Let me be more open to different types of communication, different types of people. I actually talked so much shit about pronouns, like they, them, all this. I was like, what is this trash? When it first started really coming out, I did not agree with it. I was like, what is this? This is stupid. How can you be a them? Blah, 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 blah.
You were
and I did the
correct.
whole thing. You're interrupting me.
But you were correct. I'm
But
just saying. I'm agreeing with
they
you.
asked you not to comment, and you're commenting. So if you could stop, that would be great.
Well,
Thank
whatever.
you. So anyway,
Mm-mm.
as I was saying, so I changed my mind because I got to spend time around other people who were non-binary, who were non-conforming, and I got to speak with them, and I got to experience their life and their experiences. And then I realized myself, I'm like, shit, maybe this is what I've been experiencing my whole life, only because I was exposed to it. If I would have never been exposed to it, I would have never known that this could have been my experience. And I would have lived the rest of my life as a different person, as somebody who I'm not. And it's funny that you keep talking, that some people keep talking about, oh, you need to go through HRT, you need to have surgeries in order to be trans. That is all garbage.
Another thing I never said. It's just so crazy.
Again,
Do you think he's always felt that way? Like non-binary and he just didn't know? Because the only like I don't know him, right? So I don't know what he's been through and stuff, but I remember Blair saying that when she was younger, she had feelings of gender dysphoria, but because she was so young and she didn't understand, she didn't know what it was called or like what the feeling was. It was just, I feel different, right? I don't know if he felt these feelings of I feel different, but I just don't know what it's called. And maybe he met non-binary people and was like, oh, maybe this is what I was feeling. Like, I guess sometimes we have a moment where we connected and be like, this is what I was feeling, but I don't know. It's just, I really don't even know like what to say. Like, he's saying if he had never met any non-binary people or anybody who was living, non-conforming, that he would have lived as someone he's not. But in a sense, that wouldn't be true because he would have had no idea. So I don't know.
and
I did.
you're still interrupting me while I'm talking. This is the
You're
second time now.
addressing me,
This
and
is
you-
the second time now.
If you can claim someone said something they didn't say, they should be able to correct you in the moment.
Do you feel good now that you said what you needed to say?
I feel fine.
Wonderful.
I'm sitting pretty. I'm fine.
So,
Mm-mm.
I mean, sometimes it's like the power that needs to hold me
I
back.
mean, you're
because
appropriating a medical condition. That's what you're really doing.
I exist. I am proof that non-binary people exist and that it is a thing. And because I'm sitting right here in front of all of you, I'm a real person. This is my experience, just as yours. Just as yours is the trans experience. That as a trans woman.
Wait,
as a
did you
trans
hear
woman-
that?
Sorry, it's just as yours is the trans experience.
See, this is my experience, just as yours is the trans experience, not ours, yours. He literally he separated them, right? And the prompt is that it's the same, which he keeps saying, but he just differentiated it subconsciously. If he felt trans, he would have said our experience, but he said just, this is my experience, just as yours is the trans experience. I mean, he just said it.
Person. This is my experience, just as yours. Just as yours is the trans experience. That as a trans
See?
woman, as a trans man, or as whatever. But I'm not here to belittle your experience or to tell you that you don't exist. And that's the difference between you and I. That you're trying to cancel you. And when I say you, I'm talking about conservatives. And maybe it is you. You're part of the thing. You're part of the thing. So
Here's where I
why-
get to
so why
interject
is it
because there's
not
a lot of
okay?
things said about
Stop
me.
addressing her and just talk to everybody.
But what is your dysphoria?
Well, there was some things.
Oh,
Okay.
what is your
So,
dysphoria? That's true.
Another
I want to hear it.
complete.
Do they come back
I
to
don't want
that?
to say the word lie, but I guess that's what it is about what I've said here, right? I never said you don't exist. So we can add that to the long list of things y'all have said I've said that I didn't. We know you exist. You're here. You're not fictitious, right? My point is you're different than me, and I don't even think you deny that, but yet when I say it, it's an issue, right? The same way that he said he can't take that off, you can, right? It's different. At the very least, it's different. And when we have a community that there are so many categories, demi-girl, demi-boy, astrosexual, all this shit, but y'all can't fathom that maybe that would be a different category than what I am when we have such different, as you keep saying, and everyone keeps saying, experiences? It doesn't make sense. A bisexual is different than a gay man.
Can I ask a question? I just actually want to ask you a question. What is your dysphoria?
She
though?
came back to it,
Because
yes.
Gender dysphoria, or sex dysphoria, as I would rather call it, is an uncomfortability between my secondary sex characteristics. Not just what I wear on a daily basis, because masculinity and femininity doesn't have anything to do with being trans.
But that's not true. But that is not true. You can have dysphoria without having to be dysphoric about your sex parts.
But what is your
That's
dysphoria?
not-
What is
about
your
anything.
That-
Straight cis women have dysphoria about their breasts all the time. They get breast
That's not dysphoria. That's body dysmorphia. Gender dysphoria is feeling like you're the other gender. Body dysmorphia is when you look in the mirror and you're like, you know, I look fat, or I look ugly, or, you know, I have this thing on my chin, or, you know, like something that really bothers you about your body that makes you self-conscious. That's body dysmorphia. He's confusing the two. Yeah. I don't know.
It's not dysphoria.
That doesn't mean
Yeah, see?
that doesn't mean that I'm not dysphoric about certain things. That doesn't mean that. And you don't know my life. You're not in my life.
It's always that. You don't know my life. It's the same thing that when Blair was on the Jubilee debate a bit ago with that non-binary trans femme, Jamie, that was like, I am above, I am beyond. That was the whole situation. But it was that same discussion about non-binary being separate from trans, and Blair told Jamie that you're not trans, and Jamie had like a mental breakdown in the episode, and the moderator was like, are you okay, Jamie? Are you okay? Honey, it is a fact that you are not trans. Non-binary is completely separate. And they did the same exact thing. You don't know my life.
If I ask you a question.
You don't know what I
cannot-
experienced, the different things that I experienced personally.
I cannot believe that I grew up as, you know, this 5-year-old little kid experiencing just crippling gender dysphoria, like horrible thoughts, struggled so much my entire life to be sitting in this room and you're explaining to her what dysphoria is.
I have my experience. It
It's-
doesn't mean
it's
that I
different.
didn't have crippling.
You got a different
It doesn't
experience.
mean
You
that
got a
I
different
might not.
We all have a
experience.
different. We all have a
We all have
different
different
experience.
experiences.
He's saying it's different. It's a different experience, yet it's saying non-binary should not be considered. Their whole stance is that it's the same, but he keeps saying it's different. And when Blair says it's different, then they come for her.
I know, but we're all both not
It's okay,
different
y'all.
things. That's it. It's that simple. We don't identify as our gender at birth.
Obviously, I'm not a non-binary person, so I can't speak for non-binary people, but I can talk about what I've been taught by non-binary people. From what I understand, when it comes to some non-binary people, sometimes they have to go into the gender binary for safety reasons, depending on the environment that they're in. A non-binary person stepping into this world and dismissing the gender norms of what people think a man and a woman is supposed to be like is so powerful. If you don't want to be mutable to the times of the expansion of the trans and
Expanding the gender norm is not transitioning, because when you transition, you are exhibiting the behaviors that you're considering to not go with your aligned gender, right? So like a masculine, like a man who's super feminine, who has gender dysphoria, is gonna transition to a woman. That's not expanding the gender, like, because like you can just like the whole situation, it's like you can be okay, for women, let's say, like men's idea of a woman is that she's submissive, she listens to what he says, she's the housewife, and you know, she does the typical woman roles. But let's say you have a woman who is aggressive, who is dominant, who has a really well-paying job, who's like, that is expanding the gender norm, because like women, or that one in particular, is achieving a lot. But if they decide to transition, right, it becomes like a man, like, you know, it's typically what men do. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to explain, but like expanding the gender norm would be to continue being a woman who's aggressive, or like, you know, doing all the things she's doing. Or, you know, for a man, expanding the is like being a feminine man, like a man who likes to do nails sometimes, who likes to have a feminine role in society. That's expanding gender norms. But when you transition, it's not.
non-binary experience, then just say that. I would rather you just say that you are not willing to move forward, learn the new terminology, learn the new pronouns that come with the trans umbrella and the trans experience for the most part. And also, I'm sorry, one more thing. And also, too, there are non-binary people who have different sexual orientations. Let's also name that, too. There are so many layers of nuance that we could really get to when it comes down to the root of what being non-binary is.
But what's the
That's true though. Like what? Okay, if okay, I have a question. I don't know if any of you guys can answer this. I'm also recording this for YouTube, so if you're watching on the YouTube version, leave it in the comments. If you are non-binary and like let's say you're biologically male and you identify as non-binary, but you like men. Are you gay? Are you pansexual? Because pansexual indicates that you'd be attracted to anybody. Bisexual means you're attracted to both genders. If you're gay, you are attracted to men. So like if you identify as non-binary, then what would be your sexuality if you liked men and your biological sex was male? If anybody knows that answer, please leave it in the comments. I'd like to know.
definition?
But it doesn't make them trans.
My big thing when it comes to, I agree with a lot of the things that you just said. I actually love you. I adore you.
Oh, thank you. Right back at you.
But here's the thing, right? That's not the prompt. The prompt was, is it different? And it is. Again, when I go out, I can't like take my beard off, girl. It's not coming off.
Right.
Unfortunately, as much as I hate having facial hair despite being a guy, like
Real.
it, yeah, like I can't go and reshape my body. I can't go and shave my Adam's apple down. I've been on this since I was 15. What if it had gone wrong?
So I have an interesting experience with non-binary myself, as someone who has presented as a binary trans man. I also don't take testosterone. So for me, especially throughout my transition, I took testosterone for a short period of time just to get the beard and the aesthetics that I wanted to in my transition. And once I reached those goals, I personally didn't want to lose my access to being able to give birth to a kid, especially with being with my wife for 17 years. We've been wanting to have kids, so I wanted to, have a backup uterus, so to speak.
This is the guy that was advocating for minors getting top surgery. Like minors being able to transition, have gender affirming care. Gender affirming care, it's no secret that it can destroy your reproductive system, right? But he didn't want to lose his reproductive system. But you're advocating for little kids to be able to do that. Like, and also, he only took testosterone to get the male features that he wanted, which was the beard and the deeper voice and stuff like that. But I don't know, if you're gender dysphoric, would you be gender dysphoric about your uterus? Like, would you? I don't know, how would that be? I don't have gender dysphoria, so I wouldn't be able to relate to that. But if there is anyone who is watching who is a trans man or something, are you, like, does your uterus give you dysphoria or something like that? Like, I don't know. But yeah.
And in that process of doing that, I've discovered a lot about myself and my own identity of what is a man and what is a woman. And for me, when I take a look at the issue and the conversation, there's kind of two things happening. Simultaneously, our community is infighting with each other instead of looking outwardly at these structural systems that are actually truly affecting us with laws, politics, access to medical care, and et cetera. While simultaneously, we see that the idea of fitting into the patriarchal structures, the misogyny, everything that is kind of placed in us, I don't subscribe to that. I mean, all my life have been breaking the rules of what a gender ideology is just by my pure existence. I didn't grow up with the idea of knowing what trans was my entire life. I discovered that actually being homeless. I didn't discover that through some collegiate access to college or influence from others. There was no one around me that knew or that I knew it was trans. I discovered that myself. But as I've aged in my transition, because I've been trans for damn near almost 20 years now, I've discovered my own fluidity in that area because I actually enjoy my female side too.
Interesting. I guess, yeah, I can't really say much.
Doctors are manipulating trans medical care.
Absolutely. Why are all these people saying no, bitch? It's so true. They really are. I want to see what they say.
I think there's 3 types of doctors out there. I think there are the ones who absolutely think that they're doing this for the right reasons. I think that there are the ones who are absolutely doing it for money, like we saw at Vanderbilt. The people at Vanderbilt literally said this is a huge moneymaker. And then I think that there are, I don't know if it's incompetence or ineptitude or laziness. Because what we're seeing, not just in the trans community, we're seeing in society, SSRIs being pushed on patients. Mental health doctors are pushing so many different drugs without getting to the root issues.
See, I have an interesting perspective on this. I've been out for 11 years this year. I've been on testosterone since I was 15 years old. And even looking into it, I waltzed my little ass up into that doctor's office and I left on testosterone. He gave me my first shot in the doctor's office that day. Oh my gosh. I was 15
Holy
years
shit.
old. What if I had been wrong?
Look, Sasha.
What if I had been wrong? It really just is that simple.
I'm joining mid-convo.
Wow, nice to see you.
Because I think like it's not. I don't think it's like a huge widespread issue, but I think when we have like a for-profit healthcare system, it does happen. Like I feel like there are I believe that people should be evaluated and go through tests. And like for me, getting on testosterone and getting surgery was a massive process in my life. But I do think that it probably happens. Just like you said, like with SSRIs and stuff, like things are overprescribed.
So
For sure.
I do think it's a massive issue. I think that society in general, as Sarah mentioned, is over-medicalized right now. We're in this weird climate where there are entire political movements behind if you do or you don't have a vaccine. You can't enter this building if you do. You can if you do. You know, it's like crazy. But, you know, when it comes to the trans issue, I think just the fact that there were really almost no detransitioners as recent as like 5-6 years ago, and the fact that it's exploded now shows that it is a massive issue. And, you know, I think that I can reflect what you said. I was over 18 when I started my hormones, but I had a 20-minute appointment, and just like you, I walked in and out with an estrogen prescription. Insane. I wasn't tested
I didn't
for my
have to
levels.
see a therapist first.
No.
I had no letter.
And you were a child.
I was
That's
a child.
crazy.
I was
So,
15
and
years
that
old.
is a very,
in
very
one of the most
common-
conservative states in the country. So if that's what's going on
Wow.
in Georgia,
Wow.
imagine what's going on everywhere else.
California, hello.
Yeah, when I went for my initial appointment, I literally helped my doctor find gender dysphoria on his chart and mark it for me.
That's
And
insane.
I walked out with my prescription
And
that day.
I mean, because I do a lot of work with the detrans community, and the problem is I actually don't really care too much about, you know, if you are an adult and you walk into a doctor's office and want estrogen and you walk out. I don't think that's an issue. What is an issue is when doctors are not giving all the information, when they're actually telling you that this is what's right for you, and then it's not. They're actually manipulating their patients. They're manipulating, you know, they say if you don't do this, you're gonna kill yourself, and all this stuff. So I would actually rather a doctor say, I have no idea what this is gonna do to you, but it's your body, your choice, you can do what you want, and then leave you on your way and you can make that decision.
Right.
right.
I think they're not asking.
And most doctors don't even have much research to begin with about this type of care. So it's, you know, they can only give you so much information, but, you know, if they're telling you that you got to do this, you're going to die, that is manipulation, because, like, they're telling the parents, do it or your kid's going to die. It's like manipulation. Like, of course you don't want your kid to die, so you think you're going to do what's best for them. But these doctors are taking advantage of that.
Asking the patient why. Why do you feel this way? It's a simple question.
Another thing I was never informed of, you know, when I started my hormone journey, and now it seems, you know, like common sense, but I was, you know, 20, so it's like, you know, even 20-year-olds can have oversights. No one told me I had to freeze my sperm.
That's crazy. crazy.
So
we
I'm
talked
years
about that.
into estrogen. I reached the point of adulthood where you maybe meet a partner where that might be something you want to do. And I learned that I can't. And it's simply because that doctor didn't care to tell me. And why? Who knows? Maybe it was because of money. It was easier for him or better for him to get me in and out and get that money rather than maybe a couple more appointments where I'm having to figure out, how to freeze my sperm in the meantime. But a lot of these doctors are also activists.
They also
they're-
don't tell trans men that they're going to go through menopause.
Right. There's a lot of issues with trans men. Buck Angel talks about that.
He
a
almost
lot of
died.
issues.
Like,
Yeah,
he's
he
a
almost
friend
died.
of mine. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Insane.
Damn. I love Buck. Well, let's see what Blossom has to say.
So I actually almost walked up first because I do feel like the system is like pretty broken and there's not enough education in the medical system for doctors to be prescribing all the things that they do. Again, discussing SSRIs, like I was a victim of that myself. And so, I empathize for those stories. I understand that that does happen. I'm not negating that. But I think to negate medical service to somebody who needs it, who it might be life or death for, just
It's
because
not.
you feel some type of way about it, isn't right. Like, why do you care what little Timothy or Sally are doing or whatever? Like, why do you personally care what?
Well, they're children.
Timothy and
Well, they're
Sally are 8
children,
and 12.
so-
Okay, sorry, we're doing no comments.
But we're not talking about children 7 or 12, and this doesn't happen often. Has it happened? Yeah, it has, because that's the thing. It's a big world. Like, things happen all the time. Things we can't even imagine happen. It just is a reality. But again,
He keeps
to
saying the
walk
same
through a
thing.
door and then close it for other people to walk
Oh my God,
through,
this is like the third
that's
time he
kinda
said
messed up,
that.
in my opinion.
So to your point for being able to receive hormone therapy in the way that you did, I had a similar experience. I was able to walk in and get access to hormones. And that system was set up through advocacy because of what a lot of community folks are actually facing when it comes to access to hormones, access to medical care, access to all of these things. So a lot of these nonprofits actually got rid of a lot of the red tape, because for some individuals like myself who was actually homeless during my transition process, I would have never been able to afford access or get through all of this process. Now, can I admit that there is some medical malpractice? Yes, I myself had issues obtaining testosterone consistently. For some reason, the script doesn't match up, or you got to get in contact with the doctor. And it was part of the reason why I chose actually to go off testosterone, because I didn't like the idea of not having constant access, because I was worried about the damage that it could cause to my body, and also because I wanted to keep intact my reproductive rights. From what I have seen when it comes to these detransitioners, from my understanding in terms of the statistics, trans people are 8% of the population, and then the detransitioners are somewhere from 1 to 8% as well.
No, that's actually okay. Here's the thing. It's actually a lot less than you think. So, the population of the United States as of 2021 is it's like 360 something million, like, people in the United States, and the amount of trans people it was around like a little over 1.5 million people. So, considering that it's less than a less than one population, 1% of like trans people, and so the amount of detrans is even less than that. So it's point something percent. It's a really small amount, but I mean, there's probably going to be a lot more in the coming years because of how the system is right now.
So all of these laws that are coming in is to affect the entire community as a broad, while the percentages that we're affecting people is so small. While simultaneously, if we looked at things like in the past, like HIV with things like AZT drugs that were harming folks, those folks went through all of those processes and learned the research of what it was to properly take care of HIV through that unfortunate, horrible, horrific process.
I mean, it was basically chemo.
Yeah, I mean, AZT was killing people and they had no clue what we're doing. Now, unfortunately, because trans people have not got access to medical transition as long, and especially in the transmasculine community, there's a lot of research that has not been done. So to a degree, yes, we are guinea pigs in the shot in the dark. But just like in the 80s when AZT was being discovered, or 90s when it's being discovered, those folks had to go through that process. And I was given informed consent and understood that when I signed that.
We just don't.
Wait, he just said that they were guinea pigs. that trans men are guinea pigs because they don't have much research, but then in the same breath continue to say how he was given informed consent. It's not informed consent, because if they don't have the research, there's no informed consent that they're giving you. Like, yeah, that's so true. Holy fuck. Like, I was given informed consent, but he just said that we're all guinea pigs because they don't have the information. How does that work? How can you give an informed consent, like like accurate information, when you don't have any?
No, because the studies aren't there, like you said, right? So the problem is when you talk about like the detransition rate, what generally happens is there's no follow-up. The longest study that's been done is 5 years out. The average detransition happens between 4 and 10 years. So we're not capturing all of that. Plus, if you haven't had your primary sex organs removed, you literally you just stop taking hormones, and then you never go see your doctor again. And so they never follow up, and you just fall off the rolls. So the stats on detransition is completely false.
So I want to say
It's true.
something.
It's gonna
First
be a
of all, I
lot
wanna
more, though.
empathize with everyone here when it comes to healthcare system, because it's not always for us. I don't think that doctors are manipulating trans care. I think they're still learning about trans care. And to your point, there is not a lot of research because the research is still new and fresh. You know, detransitioning is
To a
thing,
degree, that's correct.
But truth be told, detransitioning is actually rare when it comes to not just wanting to be trans anymore. Now, the underlying factors within that is healthcare conditions, which I actually heard a trans man who is famous talk about, you know, very well.
But
I agree with what y'all were saying because these issues are very, very real. But also, I think it's really because doctors are still learning about our experience.
So I just have to say some things that were brought up about detransitioners, which I found just a little bit ironic, right? Because for a community that is 1% or less of the general population, we can never seem to find it within ourselves to find empathy for it, even if it is the 1% of our community, which is detransitioners, and for the horrific medical malpractice, abuse, mental and spiritual turmoil they go through. It's like, so we want the rest of the world to say this 1% matters, but our 1% doesn't matter. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's not as if they detransition because of, just like you said, the loosening of all the restrictions to get on these drugs. It's like, that's not a good thing. Gatekeeping is a good thing.
Right.
Like making sure the right people are getting on these drugs so there aren't regret cases, there aren't
Right.
botched cases. That's what we have to go towards, because right now we're going down the slippery slope of anyone can get on it. Every single person here, I'm pretty sure, just stated that they went in and walked out in an hour or less to get their hormones. And that's a huge problem, especially a child.
Because of things that have happened to
Yeah,
me,
at
I can
15,
see a
it's
future
crazy.
where transitioning for adults is banned. Like, I can.
I hope
because
that's not the
of everything
case.
that's going on with kids.
Yeah, I think most of us are against a ban and stuff like that. Obviously,
Yeah,
we're all sitting
obviously,
here for a
but-
reason. I think I had the common ground though, because everybody here kind of also admitted that we don't have the research, and so when we don't have the research, and I'll tell you, I think that adults can do what they want, but I think we don't push forward with transitioning children until we have the research. We do the research. And this is actually what GenSpec pushes as well. GenSpec organization, they push to get more research on it so we absolutely know what this does. Because even the WPATH guidance, the latest guidance from WPATH, everything that it says even about puberty blockers, it says, it cites a study, and then it says we don't know.
To your point about gaining research, how do you expect the medical community to gain access to research if we're just preventing these folks to actually go through any of the processes to learn the scientific method of what is happening?
Just have a small
just like
select
with
group of
AZT
people.
drugs, where we learned that that was actually harming us, and now we have things like Biktarvy.
Yeah, so it's the same way as we have with any research. You have a very select, very heavy gatekeeping crew.
I love
that you're
Sarah.
allowed to, create these studies around. And you need a good checklist to be like, these people show all the actual signs of gender dysphoria. They are having like very strong distress, and in every state that's passed bans on access for minors also has provisions except for in the most extreme cases to conduct studies on.
Gender affirming transition is suicide prevention.
No. Um, yeah, I don't think so. It's if it's causing you to reach the point of suicide and that you're thinking about it, the answer to that is not having an operation, it's going to a therapist. Because having an operation is not going to magically erase everything you have been feeling up until this point. Like, it might help, like, you and like feel better, but it's not going to get rid of it. And if you go past it without talking about it, you're never going to get past it.
Look at our unified front.
I mean, obviously, it's a known thing that trans youth are at greater risk of suicide and just suicidal ideations, which are horrible and will plague you and like ruin your life and make it awful. And so I know there are a lot of kids in a lot of pain, and growing up as a trans kid, I was in so much pain, and I feel like I could have been spared of a lot of that and gotten to enjoy my life a lot more if I had earlier access to gender affirming care, and even the gender affirming care that I did receive later in my life when I went on hormones when I was like 16.
Is it just me, or is I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion, but I think most teenagers have contemplated suicide. Like, it's not, like, I guess in certain situations, if you're feeling a certain way and you can't be this, if it causes you to feel that way, you have to go see a therapist. But I'm saying that there's a lot of other reasons why teenagers might feel that way. Like, being a teenager is a crazy ass time to be alive. Like, you're growing up, you're discovering who you are, and sometimes your living situation may not be the best, and so you're feeling that this is an easy way out, or there's like certain like abuse going on in your household, and that could be the way out for you. Like it's you don't have to be only feeling gender dysphoria to have thoughts of suicide. And I think that I'm like, if you're saying that cutting off your breast at a young age and getting you know, gender affirming care is going to be what prevents you from suicide, then what would be the answer for all those other kids who have a dysfunctional household, who's being abused, and things like that? What would be their answer? They're not going to get an operation or something like that. Like, the common ground in all these situations is you have to go to a therapist to talk about what you're feeling, because everybody needs somebody to vent and talk to. It genuinely helps.
And I got top surgery at 17. That completely changed my life in the most dramatic way. And so, yeah, I think it is life-saving care, and I think a lot of trans people would agree.
I agree as well too. I think gender dysphoria is a real thing, and we all deal with gender dysphoria differently. I know for myself or whatnot, there were times I wanted to end it all, and for me, I went to desperate measures to align my body with how I feel on the inside. And for some of us, especially living in the South, we don't always have access to hormone care. So some of us have to go to the black market. We have to do things to our body to be able to align us to where we are not willing to commit suicide. I don't think that's the only way. I think there are other ways as well too. But honestly, sometimes people just want somebody that cares, that wants to listen as
See,
part
a therapist.
of the regimen to being able to prevent suicide.
I've chosen to not medically transition in my bottom half, let's put it that way. But, and this is the first time I'm actually saying this out loud, but I am having facial feminization surgery. And
had it.
that was an incredibly, ridiculously difficult journey, even as an adult who has a really good job and access to really great health care. But I still had to go through so many hoops, and I was still denied by insurance. And in my own personal life, I've also struggled quite a bit with mental health, and a lot of that.
He was denied by insurance because it's a cosmetic procedure. It's not trans. It can help you feel more affirmed in your gender because you feel more feminine, but he's not trans, and it's not a life-saving operation. It is a cosmetic procedure. That's why it's not covered under insurance.
Really relates to the certain parts of my body. Like, I always hated my body when I was younger, and I didn't understand why. And and I was always dressing as like a cis male, and I just had all this stuff just didn't fit. It just didn't feel right, and it was just like this darkness in my life. Like I just wanted it, gone. And I just learned to live with it. But then eventually, like, after figuring out who I am and all of that, like now I know like this is life-saving care. Like this for me is life-saving care. Like who knows where I could be in a few years had I not known who I am and had access to care.
So he's saying he's not transitioning in his bottom half, and there's nothing for his top half to be removed. So there is no gender affirming care at all that's going to be happening. The only thing that he needs, that he feels he needs, is facial feminization surgery. And for him, he's considering that life-saving care. So he's comparing gender dysphoria and, having all those things to saying that if I don't get this feminine facial surgery, that I'm going to kill myself. That's like saying, a girl's like, I need bigger breasts. Like, if I don't get a boob job, I'm going to kill myself. Like, that's kind of, it's really shallow.
How y'all doing?
I think too often we hear, that if we don't affirm our child's, gender identity that's different than their sex, then they're going to commit suicide. We hear this all the time,
Yeah.
especially from the detransition community whose parents were told this and it was manipulative. We hear politicians say this all the time when they're trying to, stop bills or pass bills. The problem with that is that's the same line that abusers use. So when you're in a relationship, if you're going to leave somebody and they say, if you leave me, I'll kill myself, then that is an abusive situation. And
Yes.
it's not, so
Yes, Sarah.
that's the premise we start with. Transition, I mean, we're all here, we know. Transition is not an easy process. It takes a heavy mental toll. And so I really think that if you're already suicidal, you have to get that in check. You have to be in a healthy place before you can even think about going through the medicalization of transitioning. You can socially transition. I think that's absolutely fine.
I agree.
But I think that, before you even think about medically transitioning, then I think you have to have your head right before that.
I agree.
And hormones will make you feel kind of crazy anyways.
Exactly.
So I think that's
Sarah
why
is on top of it.
it's not.
Crazy.
See, when it comes to gender affirming care, I appreciate everything that gender affirming care has done for me. And I thank God every day that this was the right decision for me, because I have friends like Richie who it wasn't the right decision for, and now he's missing genitals. So, when it comes to it being life-saving, the reason I didn't step forward, even as somebody who might agree with that prompt, is because correlation is not causation.
What do you mean by that?
Just because something is related to another thing does not mean it directly causes it.
Okay.
There's a little thing called a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And sometimes when we create a narrative, it can kind of take on a life of its own. So I know there's a lot of talk about suicide statistics in the trans community. And interestingly, almost all of those statistics come out of LGBT activist organizations who have an incentive to put those numbers out to portray this image that we are suffering greatly, we're under attack, and then all of those suicide rates are due to societal mistreatment. And when these kids are being told, like you said, when they're going into these doctors, the doctors are telling their parents essentially emotional blackmail. They're saying, trans your kid or your kid's gonna die. And they say it in front of the child. And they set up this false dichotomy as if those are the only two options moving forward. And here to tell any child feeling any type of way.
That is so true. If the doctor says that why would the doctor say that in front of the children? Because they're going to believe it. And then they think, oh God, if I don't do this, I'm going to die. Do you think that doctors who have told this to patients, and for the patients who have actually committed suicide because of this, should be charged with something? Because in a sense, you put this in their brain that this is the only reality that they're going to have. And if they don't transition, they're going to die. And what about those people that have done that? Like, are those doctors held responsible? I don't know. They should be.
They're not your only two options. In fact, there is a vast array of options in between and around suicide in transition. Therapists and doctors aren't even legally allowed to say, no, you're not trans, you're actually experiencing A, B, or C.
Exactly.
And that's the case with detrans people as well. They have this huge host of issues: depression, body dysmorphia, anorexia, eating disorders, maybe sexual abuse in their past. People don't know that a long observed symptom of sexual abuse is wanting to be the other gender to cope with it.
So
This has been in textbooks forever. So I just think, I'll wrap it up really quickly. I just think it's a false dichotomy that it's either death or transition. But with that said, I agree with you. I appreciate everything that transition's done for me, but it's too much of a roll of the dice, and I think it's unhealthy telling people, do it or you're gonna die, especially a child.
So for the LGBTQ organizations, we also have to remember that they are relying on reputable resources. And a lot of those reputable resources are the medical research that has been put out there. So all they can do is take that information and be able to disseminate that into the community. And to be quite honest with you, hold on just a second. To be quite honest with you, and let's also be clear that these researchers are also collaborating with these organizations because they are the ones that have the most outreach to the community that they need to serve, which is the trans community, because oftentimes the reason why nonprofit grassroots organizations are created in the first place is because there was no place for us. And so it is really hard to get that research to be able to do that. We can agree to disagree, but the research has not been completely fulfilled yet because a lot of these people don't even know about our experience, and that is why it's important that we make it very clear what we need to do.
There's also, speaking of the numbers that come out of LGBT activist organizations, there was a little number that the life expectancy of a trans woman was 35. That was rescinded a couple years ago after like over a decade of that being like just factually, shared. And I always thought that my life was statistically going to end at 35. So, but those numbers were based on, by those organizations, prostitute deaths. So it's not always the most reputable numbers they're getting, you know what I mean? And these activist organizations are political too. We get caught up in calling them activists, and
that's true.
Emotional, spiritual thing, but they are political organizations.
Yeah, so I am an activist, and so a lot of what you're talking about really was focused more on Black trans women, because Black trans women do not live past the age of 35, because oftentimes it is our group within the trans community that is often murdered, we're often harassed, we're often discriminated against, and so a lot more of that focus has had to be around Black, brown, indigenous folks, because oftentimes the research goes missing for us.
They sourced it from prostitutes, though.
Yeah.
That was the source of the
But
stat.
see, the thing is, though, even when we talk about prostitutes, trans women have to sometimes participate in sex work to survive.
But they based it off cis prostitutes. Sorry, I'm done. It was just, it was false numbers.
So from what I understand is, a lot of that focus has always been around Black trans women, because we do not get to see the age of 35. You are in a
they don't get to see the age. How old is Blossom? They don't get to see the age of 35. It was just debunked, though. It was about prostitutes, not even Black prostitutes, just all prostitutes. The average age. It's not about Black trans women, honey. Holy shit. Okay, here we go.
place. When I say privilege, you're in a place of privilege where you do not have to worry about the harassment and the discrimination that I face. I face as a Black person. I face as a
We're
Black
not gonna
person.
get
I'm
into
not going to
that.
say that you do not
I saw this clip.
experience harassment or discrimination. That's not what I'm saying, because like you said, you're a person of nuance. And so follow me here. When I come as a person of color, as a Black trans woman, you and I do not get to have that same experience. There are
You
more
went to the
rooms,
White House, I didn't.
There are more rooms that you get to walk in that I will be forbidden in.
Absolutely not. Name a place where you're forbidden in. There's so many Black women that are very well respected. Like, you have Michelle Obama, you have Oprah Winfrey, and even like a Black trans woman, you got Laverne Cox up in this bitch. Like, everybody loves her. But like, this is not the 1800s. You're not banned from going anywhere because you're a Black.
And one thing about it is, that's why it's important, like someone like me has to create her own space to be able to counteract what you're doing. And I'm not saying that you don't. But what I'm saying here is, what I'm trying to get you to understand is, my Blackness should not have to pay for your whiteness that
doesn't make
is
sense.
destroying my community.
That makes no sense. Also, Blair's not even white. If you guys know Blair, she's mixed. Latina. She's half Latina, half white. So yeah, that's incorrect.
I'm
Because of
destroying your
privilege.
community.
So are you gonna tell all of my exes
How are you gonna
that?
say that and then that's the end?
What you're talking about too is there's not the research. You're right, there's not. Everybody likes to cite the Turbin study, and Jack Turbin is a complete activist. You can just go to his Twitter account and see how actively involved he is in this and how
I'm
financially.
sorry, what was his name?
Jack Turbin. Okay. And you can see how much he's financially gained off of this study. And the issue is the study is based on a survey. And so it's based on a survey of adults. And so when you're doing surveys are not scientifically accurate. They're the least accurate way to do a study.
Exactly.
And so when we're basing all this medical care off of a survey, it's a huge issue.
Exactly.
And it doesn't serve, it doesn't really, and that's what they're citing to prove that, gender affirming care reduces suicidality.
My question is, if they're using a survey in terms of how they're gathering data, what do you suggest them to use a tool then to gather data? Because
That is a good
from my
question.
understanding, a lot of those surveys are actually more accurate because folks are actually not in front of somebody, so they're more comfortable to answer these questions. Again, we can have a difference of opinion, but what tool then do you suggest folks to use if they're not using a survey then?
That's actually kind of not true. I mean, and maybe in a sense it might help people feel more comfortable to answer, but there's going to be trolls out there that's going to answer in the most obnoxious way possible these questions. And it's going to be put in the statistic because it's a survey that he conducted. So I agree with Sarah. It's not a scientific way to do the study because literally you can just get anyone and they can put any answer they want.
How do you gain that data?
Well, you're talking to therapists who can speak, they can't violate HIPAA, but they can give statistics on their patients. You can see how many people
Very
have
true.
entered into facilities because they were suicidal.
I wouldn't have been able to answer with something like that, but Sarah's on top of it.
On that, and then you can go back and see if we gave these same people gender affirming care, how did it help them? Because I see a lot of, again, go back to the detransition community, because we affirm their gender so much. There's so much, they're now having issues. They're contemplating suicide at a higher level as well.
Great.
I enjoyed this debate for what it was. It was quite ugly at certain points, and I wish that it was all trans people on the panel because that would have been more appropriate.
Jesus.
Wow. You're so offensive. You're an offensive person.
Is she wrong though? She's not wrong. Why is a non-binary person on the panel?
It's a human being. Yeah.
Okay.
Just so
Well,
you know.
I find a lot of things over here offensive as well.
Oh wow. Yeah, you're disgusting.
And I have to. Trust me, the feeling is more than mutual. But I will say that it was very enlightening, and I hope to be back at Jubilee soon.
I definitely think this was interesting. Obviously, I don't think we have a lot of common ground on a lot of things, but I think we found some. I think what most conservatives in general believe is, as an adult, you can do what you want with your body. I talk to conservatives all the time. We don't allow children to make decisions for themselves on a wide range of issues, and that's why we don't let them, mutilate their bodies.
I mean, it was educational, enlightening. I got to learn a lot, and it's nice meeting all of you.
I liked hearing the different perspectives, and I feel like even though I'm definitely in my beliefs, I understand where things come from, I just do not agree saying that everybody on this panel is not trans. I think it's bullshit, and I think you're trans and you're a part of my community.
Thank you.
Yep.
I really appreciate it.
Yep.
I, despite all of the madness, enjoyed conversation with all of y'all. I love debates. We don't have to agree with each other, but these conversations need to continue happening because they're not happening anywhere else. And so until we're all creating more platforms around this for ourselves so other people can understand, then, let's keep at it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, regardless of my interaction with Blair here today, we are all, for the most part, I think, mostly in an echo chamber in our own lives. So it's nice, actually, to be in front of all these people, especially the ones who don't see the things the way I do, because it also opens my eyes to see, maybe I could rethink X, Y, Z, or maybe there's something I learned today. I'm not closed off to learning something new or to changing my mind, because I've done that before and I can do that again, and I will evolve as a human being.
All I have to say to the general public is start thinking of reasons why you supported doing this to kids.
And to that point,
Reasons why you supported doing this to kids.
The freezing.
and to that point,
Come on, Shane.
Conclusion.
Did you see Blair's face?
Come on, Shane.
Conclusion.
It's just, I'm hoping that folks will be able to understand why the activism is there and what it is, because generally there may be mistakes made in that light, but at the end of the day, we are, as trans people, trying to gain access to society in a healthy, safe way, and also see a future for ourselves, which is something that I never had access to with the way that I grew up in a lot of that ideology of not being allowed to do things when I was 18, even though I knew exactly who I was.
This was a very interesting debate. Oh, look at Shape right there. That's Shape. I love him. Yeah, this was a really interesting debate. I can see why why Blossom was under attack for a lot of stuff. Like she threw out that threat at Blair, to keep it real cute. And just a lot of her comments overall was just victimizing herself as a black trans woman. Like everything she's going through is because she's a black trans woman, and like she's so oppressed and she's going through so much struggle. Like she keeps saying everyone has a different experience and that people have to suffer more than others, but she's talking about herself. I'm really glad that after this podcast that a lot of liberals have gone to videos that she's been in and criticized Blossom for how she behaved in this podcast, and also just the whole like victim blaming thing in general, like the whole victim, like her life is not that bad. I mean, maybe now it is just because of everything, but those were her own actions. Anyway, let's see. Also, I did go to Blossom's Instagram, just to see like what people were saying, and she did filter the comments. She had a thumbnail of this debate, and she said, it was a crazy debate, but let me know your comments, and it's filtered, so it's nobody can give their real comments on the situation. So she has also deactivated her Twitter, so nobody, or not deactivated, but protected her tweets, so also nobody can say anything. Yeah, just slowly things have been coming out after the debate. It's been crazy. I don't know. I side a lot with the conservatives in this debate. Obviously I came here for Blair. But now I really love Sarah too. Sarah was so informed, has so much information about different studies, and statistics, which I really appreciated. Of course her comments are filtered. She can't take criticism. Exactly. And if she sees criticism, it's like, well, it's just another thing a black trans woman has to go through. Like it's excuse me, it will never be about how she made a mistake or, was, kind of irrational during this debate, but it's just going to be about how it's just another thing she has to go through, apparently. But anyway, Jessica did kind of fizzle out at the end of this debate. I will say, I do think she did give good comments. She shut down the non-binary thing real quick. If sex is a binary and you're non-binary, you're not trans, period. Easy. Shut down the whole prompt right there. I would have liked to hear her thoughts more on the issues in the later prompts, but also Blossom, I was looking on Instagram and she put, should I read this? Because Blossom, I couldn't take it. Okay. Oh God, let's see where it was. Her thoughts, part 1 on the trans conservatives. Okay, she wrote her thoughts on each of them. Okay. For Andrew, she said, actually got along with him the best on their side. Because of controversy around him being born with HIV, maybe this can be an opportunity for him to debate black and brown trans men who has more access to treatment. Liberal versus conservative trans men, maybe, ? For Jessica, okay, this is what Jessica, she said about Jessica. In my humble opinion, I think she took up space where someone else could have given great input to the conversation. Jesus Christ. Sarah, she said, not sure why she attacked me yesterday on Twitter, but I do think we may have middle ground in research. Detransitioners are a topic I'm interested in learning, but not under hostility. I think Sarah was not hostile at all. I don't know what she was talking about, Sarah attacking. She probably, exposed Blossom for what she said about being not true, and Blossom can't take it. Let's see. For Blair, she said, in my opinion, when I look at this video, that white woman have tagged me, or wait, hold on, it's written really weird. In my opinion, when I look at this video that white women have tagged me and her in, I think of how it all makes sense why she's been attacking me on social media by lying and saying that I've threatened her, which is not true. It makes sense why she lied and said Jubilee edited in our favor. Why she has sent racists and bigots to attack me? Because she could not handle that debate. I don't know what that was, but anyway. How she edited a video of me saying, I know you have bodyguards outside, to twist it around on me, ! How when she called me ugly on set, it was deeply rooted. She wasn't bullied nor harassed. In my opinion, though, when I look at this honestly, I think it amplifies my talking point. It's literally on camera. She literally threatened Blair right there. And the fact that she went on the podcast the day after and said, I felt unsafe on the set. Absolutely not. And apparently there's no security on set, Blair says. So, Blossom definitely threatened Blair and there's no security. So who the fuck is gonna protect her if something happens? This is the words on Blossom. Blossom wrote words about herself. She says, I am a divine light, and I do not have to dim my light into darkness for anyone. I am a goddess. This makes what I said more impactful as my work as a trans activist and healer continues. Black trans women like myself do not deserve to pay with our lives for lies. We deserve to live and be free, and I shall. I think she means, I don't know what she means. I completely nothing Blair White in my victory and glory. Thank you, universe, for this moment, because I've broken generational curses and sent healing back through the ancestral line. Oh, and by the way, happy Hispanic Heritage Month, Blair. Holy shit, bitch. She called Blair white, but she acknowledges she's Hispanic. Are you kidding me? Blossom, I have no words. She wrote about herself. Like, I am a goddess. I am a shining light. Like, I can't. But anyway, this is going to be the end of the video. I'm also streaming at the same time, but thank you guys so much for watching, those of you who stayed. And thank you for the follow, Jamie. I really appreciate it. Thanks for staying by. You stood for a long time. So yeah, this is going to be it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. My next video is, this is going to be a really crazy jump in videos that I normally do. I literally do Smash Bros videos, and it's going to be a whole like political, transconservative kind of video. So it's not my typical audience, but I do think this has to be discussed because it was important. It brings a lot of light to a lot of these issues that we're seeing in the real world today. So sometimes we got to take a break from the video games and actually talk about real life stuff. So yeah, so that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.